between us and the US is a long-standing relationship that has helped to keep the peace for 80 years. It is wrong to simply walk away from that relationship, in my view. It's a special relationship, close relationship. We now have to step up to the challenges that tariffs undoubtedly put on the table for us. Thank you, Robert. Chris from GBNews.
Prime Minister, Chris Hope from GBNews. You said the old assumptions don't apply anymore. We've got your back, you told us just then. People are really worried about their finances. The ISA deadline was Saturday. People put money in stock markets now. Would you stick to your election pledge now not to increase national insurance, VAT or income tax for the lifetime of this Parliament?
Chris, we made that commitment in the manifesto, we were absolutely clear about going into the budget and the spring statement, and that is a commitment we've made and a commitment that we will keep, because the first lever can't be more taxes. My strong belief is that we have to grow our economy, create the conditions for investment, which we have done. There's been record investment coming into our economy. Now, in the light of these challenges, we have to go further and faster in the changes we're making, whether that's to do with regulation, whether it's to do with the EV mandate, to make it more flexible so that businesses like this can thrive and meet the challenges. We have to push on into that space. So I'm still strongly of the view that the challenge we face is how to grow our economy, not just the sort of familiar tax and spend levers. Thank you. I'm going to go now to the Telegraph, and Tony, please, Tony Driver.
Thank you. Tony Diver from The Telegraph. Today, Prime Minister, you've announced that you're putting more flexibility into the EV scheme to reduce red tape for businesses at a time of instability. Are you reviewing other net zero restrictions? Will you reconsider the ban on gas boilers in new homes and charges on manufacturers for producing glass bottles? Well, we are taking measures today to ensure there's greater flexibility, and that is driven to ensure that businesses like this and jobs here are the jobs of the future, and to make sure that we thrive in the way we've thrived so far. I see net zero as a real opportunity. There's a global race on for the jobs of the future in relation to net zero. More investment is coming into this country in relation to renewables than any other sector. I don't think now is the time to step away from that race. Now is the time to double down on that race. Some country is going to win the race when it comes to renewables and the changes for net zero. I want Britain to be in that race, and I want us to win that race. So yes, we will work with all sectors, as we've shown today. We're not ideological, we're pragmatic. If there's flexibilities that help, which is what we've done today, in important times for JLR, yeah, of course we will take those steps. But not to understand that net zero, the electric cars of the future, there's a global race for that. We don't want to back away from that race. We want to win that race, because therein lies the wealth of our country, the wealth of businesses like this, and the jobs not just of the people standing here in front of us, but of their children and their children's children. And that's what I have in my mind's eye when I go down this path. I've got Noah from The Sun, please.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. Can you guarantee that when the current model of red arrows goes out of service, any new model won't be designed by warmongering Russia?
Yes, of course. That will be absolutely uppermost in my mind. I can give you that guarantee. It's very, very important that we don't have Russian influence in red arrows or anything else for that matter. Thank you very much. I've got Alex from Bloomberg. Alex.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Alex Wickham from Bloomberg. Are you considering further measures to protect the car industry, like import quotas? You said you'd do whatever it takes to protect them today. And on British Steel, the last British blast furnaces are within days of closure. UK set to become the only major economy without a virgin steel industry. Will you do what it takes to protect it? And would you consider nationalisation if it comes to it?
Well, Alex, I'm not going to get into particular measures. What I will say in relation to the first half of your question is what we've said today for the car industry is not the extent of anything that we can do, and I want to explore what more we can do. These are examples of what we can do at speed, but they're not the extent of my ambition when it comes to car manufacturing or any other business or sector. I think we can go further and faster, and we will do so. I'm not indicating there a particular measure, but I am indicating an openness of mind to go further, and today's announcement should be seen as what they are, which is a down payment on the way that we're going to be doing business. On the broader question of steel, look, it is really important to us. Again, it's part of our heritage. Our plans for growth are going to require more steel. And therefore the demand for steel is going to go up, not down, and that's why it's important that we support our steel industry. I'm really pleased that in Port Talbot we were able to ensure there was a better deal. I'm really pleased that we've set aside £2.5 billion for the future of steel. I'm very pleased that we're working with and discussing the situation in Scunthorpe, which is extremely worrying for the business, for the workforce, and for the community, and for the country. You know, all options are on the table in relation to Scunthorpe. Again, an example of the approach that we will take. When I talk of an active government, what I mean is a government that rolls up its sleeve, gets on the pitch, whether it's car industry, whether it's life sciences, or whether it's steel. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you again to all of you for being with us this afternoon. Thank you for what you do. And I'm now going to use what time I've got left to talk to all of you, which is what I want to do very much. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. That was the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, in the West Midlands at the Jaguar Land Rover plant, of course, reflecting on the current economic turmoil in the world. The Dow Jones Index opened mere moments into his speech. That has now gone down 4 percentile points. Sir Keir Starmer was putting on a brave face about the British car industry. There's certain irony in the fact that behind him, Jaguars, Land Rovers continuing to come off the production line, when over the weekend the production of those cars was paused because the company sells 400,000 vehicles a year and 25% of them go to the United States, and they've since been hit with a 25% tariff. He did say, though, British cars for British workers. Security and renewal is the purpose of our government. He talked a lot about net zero targets because today there was a temporary watering down of net zero targets. Electric vehicle mandates due to come in by 2030 had now been nudged back to 2035. Good news if you own a white van. If you're one of Britain's hard-working tradesmen, you've got an extra 5 years before you've got to get rid of your perfectly viable, no doubt, diesel van. But then Sir Keir Starmer went on to say, I think electric vehicle targets are a good thing, but I accept these targets have to work for British manufacturers. By the way, British manufacturers have been crying out for some mercy in face of the fact they cannot compete with the Chinese market, which has access to raw materials, to lower labour costs, and of course to vastly cheaper energy costs. How on earth can British vehicles be viable or competitive on that playing field? He went on to add, I don't want British firms to pay a hefty fine, because there was like £16,000 per unit to every manufacturer that failed to meet those punitive electric vehicle targets that have been thrown into the four winds after Donald Trump's tariffs have come in. Chris Hope, GB News political editor, I think asked an excellent question, and we now have this on record. Chris Hope asked the Prime Minister today, can you guarantee there'll be no increase in national insurance or income tax or VAT over the course of this Parliament? And Sir Keir Starmer, write this down, make a recording of this video and play it back. He said, we will keep that pledge. The first levers cannot be of more taxes. So no tax rises, potentially some watering down of electric vehicle mandates. And I was fascinated by the fact that Keir Starmer today seemed to channel his inner Brexiteer. Because, of course, the United Kingdom today stands away from the European Union, only half the percentile of tariffs, 10% UK, 20% to European Union. Starmer, he said, must rewire our economy. We must rip up regulation. Our future is in our own hands. Keep calm and fight for the best deal with the United States. Accelerate trade deals across the world, sounding every inch like Nigel Farage, sounding like a Brexiteer long last discovered The way to prosperity is to look to the horizon and do deals around the world to water down net zero targets. There's a huge amount to analyse there. Let's go to my first guest of the day. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by the economics editor at The Spectator, Michael Simmons. Michael, thank you for waiting patiently while I summed up the Prime Minister there. What leapt out of his speech there? There's a certain irony. I felt he was in front of a production line that's temporarily been paused because it can't export to America.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I think Keir Starmer and the government are waking up to this new reality that we live in. That basically, you know, they're not going far on reducing the net zero targets. I think some people would say rather than moving this diesel ban from 2030 to 2035, they should just get rid of it. But I think they're waking up to this reality where we can't set these rules on ourselves when we have to be competitive, you know, in the face of these US tariffs. But what's really shocked me, actually, is his answer on tax that you pointed out that he gave to Chris Hope there, because economists have been looking at the OBR's report into the fiscal rules over the weekend, and they say that essentially, from the scenarios they've looked at for tariffs, the one that seems to be happening is their kind of middle case scenario. And in that middle case scenario, Rachel Reeves' headroom against those rules get completely wiped out. So if the Prime Minister is serious that there's not going to be major tax rises, then we're going to be looking at major spending cuts. And it seems even more unlikely that a Labour government would want to do that.
Because exactly right, Michael Simmons, they said there'll be no return to austerity. Said that repeatedly today, the Prime Minister on record saying to GBNews' Chris Hope there will be no more tax rises. What's left? What's left? I mean, we've seen already £22 billion, that figure again, a second black hole we've now got has been knocked off the UK economy by tariffs. A report out today that we're losing one job every 9 minutes as a consequence of the budget. Something's got to give. What's going to solve the problem? Jeremy Corbyn's magic money tree?
Well, exactly. I mean, I think if it's really not going to be spending cuts and it's not going to be tax rises, then it would have to be some, you know, drastic reforms to planning, to regulation, something that could really grow the economy. But again, that seems unlikely when Donald Trump's pushing ahead with moves that most economists, you know, think are going to potentially put the US, if not the whole world, into recession. Which is why I sort of just can't get round that Keir Starmer's made such a strong commitment on this. If I was to put money on it, I would suspect he'll be rolling back on his words about tax rises, unless, of course, he knows something about Donald Trump that no one else does and thinks that Trump's about to back down. But again, that doesn't seem likely given some of the comments the president's made today.
And Michael, were you struck as I was by Sir Keir Starmer's embracing of doing global trade deals, talking about ripping up regulation, channeling the spirit of Brexit? If only, Michael Simmons, we had a Prime Minister, for example, that cut corporation tax, the levels, I don't know, say, of the Republic of Ireland or Cyprus, countries with 13-14% corporation tax. Perhaps then we could give a bit more of the carrot and a bit less of the stick. Come to Britain, build your business, low tax, low regulation, the fabled Singapore-on-Thames that Jeremy Hunt, by the way, never did, is an answer, a potential way out of this quandary, Michael Simmons, to cut tax, cut regulation and stimulate fiscal growth that way.
Well, absolutely. And I think, look, there are opportunities there. I spent the weekend speaking to some investment bankers who are actually quite positive about the UK because they think that as sort of the American economy seizes up, that money is going to be moved back across the Atlantic, and people are actually seeing that with markets, you know, dipping, being in a bear market, that there's potentially opportunities to invest, and specifically in Britain. But that is only going to happen if the government makes Britain you know, an engaging place to invest, a place where people should bring their money. And, you know, as you say, people with money don't like taxes. Well, nobody likes taxes, but specifically investors don't like taxes. So if the government wants to encourage that, then that's something they should, you know, seriously think about.
And Michael Simmons, when we had you on the show last week, we experienced the first day of the Dow Jones going down the U-bend. Today, we've seen a repetition of that. On Thursday, you were very much of the mind, keep calm, carry on, don't panic. Is that still your mindset?
I think so, yes. What I would say is don't go and look at your pension today. Don't go and look at your stocks and shares ISA, because it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good reading. It's not going to give you a happy Monday afternoon. But anyone who's serious about investing, serious about saving, has to know that this is something you're doing for a long term. These tariffs could be got rid of by a future president just as easily as Donald Trump brought them in by executive order. So I still think over the long term, markets will rebound. But I would still say over the long term, be optimistic. Just don't think about withdrawing your money, in the coming days and weeks.
Sound advice, and that's advice actually Donald Trump is saying. He said, stop panic selling. He's trying to blame people on dumping stocks off, because, of course, you know as well as I know, Michael Simmons, that a lot of big players love nothing more than a crash, because they love a fire sale at the bottom, and small investors can get caught in that crossfire. So knuckle down, keep calm, put on the tin hat and weather it out, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think so. I think you have to look at this as a long-term thing. And again, people that work in the city are actually seeing this as an investment opportunity as prices dip down. Actually, on Thursday last week, in the US markets, they had one of the busiest days in a decade for retail investors. So clearly people are seeing opportunities there, but it's all about thinking long-term. If you look at what you had last week compared to today, it's not going to be good, but you've got to think of this, long-term picture.
Michael Simmons, excellent, calm demeanour. That's what we love. The economics editor at The Spectator. Thank you very much, Michael Simmons, for joining us again here on GB News. Now, elsewhere today, Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, announced the Southport inquiry has begun today, with Miss Cooper appointing Sir Adrian Fulford as the inquiry's chair. Let's get a full update on the situation now, because I'm joined by GB News' Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, this Southport inquiry, much anticipated, is underway. Bring us up to speed.
Yes, it was in January that Yvette Cooper announced that there would be a full statutory judge-led inquiry into that horrific attack by Axel Rudikabana in the summer of last year at that Taylor Swift-themed dance class in Southport. Well, now we're told that that inquiry is officially underway. We're not at the evidence sessions at the moment, of course. We'll probably be still in the the setting up of the inquiry as such, but it will be led, we're told, by Sir Adrian Fulford, who is a well-respected and very experienced former senior judge. He was with the Court of Appeal until recently. So he will head that inquiry, which will be in two parts. The first part, we're told, will examine the events leading up to the attack itself and Axel Rudikabana and his background. This was a young man who showed very violent tendencies long before the attacks that took place last year. He was referred, as we now know, to the Prevent Counter-Extremism programme on 3 separate occasions. But on all 3 occasions, the Prevent programme felt that it couldn't deal with this individual. They didn't see him aligning to any particular terrorist ideology, so felt that it was not appropriate for them to intervene, and he was passed on effectively to other agencies of the state, but they too, the health agencies, local authorities, policing, neither of them intervened in a meaningful way to try to divert this young man from this path towards violent extremism. So that will be the first part, looking at what went wrong, the potential lessons that can be learned going forward. And then we'll get the next phase of the inquiry, Martin, which will look at the issue more generally of young people and a propensity of increasing numbers of young people to be drawn down towards violent extremism, whether they're aligned to a terrorist organisation or not, and whether perhaps some of that bloodlust that they have is being fed by what they're seeing on the internet.
What may I ask you, will this inquiry have any powers for heads to roll? I mean, there are repeated failings to prevent, to intercept, to stop Axel Rulikabana. Could anybody be held accountable for that, or perhaps be prosecuted?
Well, it could be argued that people are being held accountable already, in the sense that the head of Prevent is stepping aside, we understand, at the insistence of the Home Secretary, and that's not just because of the very evident failures of Southport, but other failures, such as, of course, the case of Sir David Amess, and the fact that the man responsible for his murder had also been referred to Prevent, but never really acted on in any meaningful way. So that individual clearly moving on from Prevent. But in terms of the powers of this inquiry, the Home Secretary agreed to the demands of the relatives, the victims of the Southport inquiry, that it should be judge-led and statutory in the sense that he can compel those witnesses that might be reluctant to attend, to give evidence. He can call on whoever he wants to give evidence, and to that end, we're told that among those giving evidence will be Merseyside Police, Lancashire Police, who've of course been called to question for some of their actions, local authorities, health services, and MI5 as well, Martin.
Excellent summary as ever, and it's worth pointing out the police chief constable of Merseyside, Serena Kennedy, is also retiring at the end of August. Mark White, thank you very much for joining us. Always a pleasure. Now, plenty more reaction next. The Prime Minister watering down those net zero targets, yet still saying it's time to double down on them. That's with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point.
He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 3:23 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Well, let's get straight to that man now. It's GB News political editor Chris Hope, who's been at the event with the Prime Minister today at the Jaguar Land Rover plant. There you are, Chris. The production line still rolling behind you. And well done. You put the PM on the spot. You asked him, will there be any more tax rises? He said no.
That's right, Martin. Welcome to Jaguar Land Rover's headquarters here in the UK in Solihull. You'll see behind me Jaguar Land Rover vehicles, Range Rovers moving off. They are left-hand drive vehicles, which could suggest they may be trying to go to America, but we'll see whether they are now, given the state of these tariffs. But it's all very busy here. And during this press conference and the speech from both Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer, those vehicles didn't stop moving off the production line. Every single moment counts in these time-critical manufacturing processes. But we heard from the PM there, he's watered down these Z net zero plans, these EV plans, or refined manufacturers that don't sell enough electric vehicles as progressively through the back end of this decade. That mandate's been weakened. And also he said further to that, we'll work with all sectors when it was asked of him whether he thought there may be an issue with lifting the ban on gas boilers, for example, or the restrictions on glass bottle manufacturers. And I asked him, particularly with our reviewers and listeners in mind, about this government's commitment on tax. The tax lock, as they called it last election, was simply this: they wouldn't increase national insurance or income tax or VAT. Now, of course, national insurance has gone up for employers, but not employees from yesterday, the start of the new tax year. And he was very clear there that we made that commitment, he says, at the election. And in that manifesto, we were absolutely clear about it going into the budget and the spring statement. That's a commitment we made and a commitment we will keep. Well, let's watch that closely, because it's not getting any easier for this government to raise funds in a very difficult and turbulent market.
No income tax, no VAT, no money back, no guarantee. Where have I heard that one before, Chris Hope? But on a serious point, Sir Keir Starmer today seemed to be channeling his inner Brexiteer. Let's rip up regulation. Our future is in our own hands. Keep calm and fight for the best deal with the USA. Accelerate trade deals across the world. Has Sir Keir Starmer finally become a Brexiteer?
It looks, well, he's certainly taking advantage of Brexit. I mean, I've long thought this government, with its lock on Brexit, no entry to the single market, customs union or freedom of movement, want to own that choice and talk up the advantage of Brexit rather than always hide from it and view it as a problem. And it seems to me the government is looking at taking advantage of those freedoms won by in that campaign back in 2016 without saying it. The one word you don't hear the government talk about is the B word, Brexit, but there's no question they are taking advantage of that. And we are better off with a 20% tariff applying to the European Union from the weekend and just 10% in the UK. So, and in that speech from the PM a moment ago, you heard him say they're looking at striking other trade deals with other countries. Now, within the European Union, that wouldn't be possible. So outside the EU, we can do trade deals, maybe an accelerated one with India, for example, a reworked one with Australia. These are all ideas being mooted in Whitehall right now, and you can see why. We have opportunities here, I think, to flex our muscles and maybe get a benefit from Brexit. But the Labour government may be loath to want to admit that.
Chris Hope, it really does sometimes feel like we've slipped into the twilight zone. Sir Keir Starmer embracing the benefits of Brexit. Well done for holding power to account there. Jaguar Land Rover speaks to you later on in the show. Keep on motoring. Now, talking of which, let's bring the motoring journalist and the car dealer, Danny Kelly. Danny, always an absolute pleasure to get you on the show. When I saw the notion of tariffs being watered down today, I texted you straight away, something I thought you'd be excited about. But today, I thought we were served a watered-down drink, a glass of shandy. No one likes a glass of shandy. Danny, especially you. You like the hard stuff. And the hard stuff would be surely ditching net zero altogether, making it competitive, making cars affordable and stopping people upgrading cars when they don't need to get rid of perfectly viable petrol or diesel motors.
Totally correct, Martin. It is a watered-down version of what he should be doing. So, look, in summary, it's good news for people who want to continue driving hybrid cars. So, part battery, part petrol. That's great news. You can extend that to 2035. You can buy it. Great news for the white van man as well, because you can buy diesel and petrol vans now and hybrids until 2035. So that's good news. I don't believe for one second Keir Starmer, Martin, is reacting to Donald Trump. I genuinely believe he is an opportunistic moment for him to say, look, let's row back on some of this crazy 2050 net zero nonsense that is generally incredibly unpopular with the country. Not exclusively, but generally it's unpopular. You know, people don't generally want to buy electric cars. Certainly the second-hand market. The new car market is very healthy for electric cars, Martin, but the used car market isn't. Prices are plummeting, and I think he's used this. It's an opportunistic moment for him to say, look, let's just use Trump as an excuse, but let's just row back on some of this. I think if he was going to go like the full Stella Artois rather than some sort of American 3.5% wheat lager garbage, what he should have done, Martin, he should have just extended the petrol and diesel ban to 2035, giving the consumer another 5 years, giving the car manufacturers another 5 years to actually get their heads around the 2035 or the 2030 pure electric mandate.
And that, Danny Kelly, might still happen because I think perhaps if you put this to the electorate, they would kick back against these targets. And certainly the manufacturers who are being hit with these punitive fines, they've been cut, right? So the targets of 20% EVs by that same deadline was £15,000 per vehicle. Now it's been cut back to 12 grand. I mean, it seems like, you know, it's not quite as bad, but it's still £12,000 per car for cars, which, let's face it, Danny Kelly, you're a car dealer, you know better than me. The public don't seem to be that bothered about buying.
Martin, the public aren't bothered about buying it. And what you've just said in summary is how punitive and almost we're committing some sort of self-flagellation in this country where we are punishing ourselves. So car manufacturers last year had a target that if they didn't sell 22% minimum of their cars pure electric, they were fined £15,000 per car. So if they missed their target by 1,000 cars, then they would be fined £15 million. I mean, it's just crazy. I heard on your show recently, one of your commentators saying, look, what more can we do? We're only a small country. Go and put some geopolitical pressure on other countries. Why are we punishing ourselves? Now, Keir Starmer has said we'll reduce that 15k per car if you miss the target to 12,000. But if you miss your target by 1,000 cars, Martin, it's still £12 million. It's a crazy amount of money, and car dealers are really worried about it. So much so, Martin, that some car dealers are refusing to sell a petrol or a diesel car if they are going to miss that target by a handful. They're refusing to do business with people. They're saying, look, if we sell you that car, we're going to miss our target. It's going to cost us £15,000 just to sell you a 25 grand Nissan, whatever. It's crazy, mate. They need to go much further. They need to just reduce this 2030 nonsense for petrol and diesel cars. They need to put it back to 2035. And indeed, I tell you what, mate, generally speaking, they should just scrap it.
Danny, I'm going to ask you, put it on the spot here now. If I'm a British punter and I want to make the most sensible, future-proof choice of vehicle, what would you advise people to be buying? What kind of motor should people be buying to ensure that it's future-proof, they don't get taxed, they don't get hammered? What's the smartest buy?
The smartest buy is to buy a petrol car, because I tell you what, Martin, on New Year's Day 2030, when you cannot buy a new petrol car, that petrol car you've bought, say in 2029, 2028, will be worth a fortune, because people don't want electric cars. They want to go down to the local Morrisons and pay £1.31 for a litre of unleaded, mate, or £1.36 for a litre of diesel. So my advice would be to buy a reliable car, a petrol car, and watch those values go through the roof, stratospheric.
There you go. You hear from Danny Kelly. Always a pleasure, mate. Next time we see you, mate, the beers are on me, and I promise you it won't be a watered-down half measure. Danny Kelly, always an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you very, very much. And lots more still to come between now and 4 o'clock, including, could a jihadi bride be allowed to return back to Britain? Yes, and she's friends with Shamima Begum. More on this next, but first, here's your headlines, and it's Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you, and good afternoon to you. 32 minutes past 3. The top story, Sir Keir Starmer is calling for cool heads as global markets continue to plunge in response to Donald Trump's sweeping global tariffs. Speaking at a Jaguar Land Rover plant earlier this afternoon, hit, of course, by those 25% US taxes, the Prime Minister said Britain must rise together in a new era of global instability. Sir Keir Starmer also called it a moment for urgency, vowing to fight for a US deal and ramp up global trade talks. Meanwhile, the FTSE 100 has plunged to its lowest level in a year, down almost 6%, fuelled by fears of a deepening trade war. Germany and France also saw even steeper falls today, and Wall Street is suffering its worst two-day drop since World War II. That's after last night, President Donald Trump said that tariffs were medicine for investors, adding that he would not do a deal with China until the US trade deficit was addressed. And we'll just stay with news on those markets momentarily, just hearing that Wall Street's main indexes have now reversed course and moved sharply higher. That's after the White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett said in an interview that Donald Trump was perhaps considering a 90-day pause on those new tariffs on all countries except on China. So it appears that after opening recently in New York, Wall Street is now reversing course and the index is moving slightly higher. In other news, a public inquiry is now underway into the Southport murders that shocked the nation last summer. Axel Ruda-Cabana was jailed for at least 52 years for killing 3 young girls and trying to murder 10 others at a dance class. The probe will ask how he slipped through the cracks despite referrals to prevent and 6 separate police call-outs. It's led by top judge Sir Adrian Fulford and will hear evidence from 15 major bodies. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper says families deserve answers and that urgent lessons must now be learned. The Kremlin says that President Putin supports a ceasefire in Ukraine, but insists key questions must be answered first. Officials claim no one has provided Russia with clarity on a potential deal. And on the global economy, Moscow warns the outlook is very tense and full of negative expectations. Russian authorities say they're watching oil prices very closely as market fears grow. And Blondie's legendary drummer Clem Burke has died aged 70 after what the band called a private battle with cancer. Described as the heartbeat of Blondie, he powered their sound from 1975 and helped keep the band together through its wildest years. He also played with the Ramones, Eurythmics, Iggy Pop and even Bob Dylan, and he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2006 and stayed behind the kit right to the very end. Those are the latest headlines. A full roundup at the top of the hour, and Martin will be straight back after this.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
The latest GB News Travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Alan Wright. In Kent, there are long delays on the M25 anti-clockwise after a lorry caught fire just before junction 5 for the M26, with queues back to Godstone at junction 6. In Surrey, the M23 northbound is partly blocked after a collision. That's between Gatwick Airport at junction 9 and junction 8 for the M25. And in Northamptonshire, the M1 southbound is partly blocked by a broken down truck just after junction 15 for Northampton.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Gynecological health, women's health as a whole, is one of the biggest societal challenges that we face currently.
What would you say, Josephine?
I've been massively failed over the 12 years that I've been dealing with endometriosis in many, many different ways. I wasn't believed to begin with. I was passed from pillar to post. There was a time where after an endometriosis surgery, I got sepsis. I wasn't believed and I was sent away from the hospital and the next day was taken back in quite a serious state. I think because I was young, but also because endometriosis just isn't taken seriously at all.
Is it because women go to the doctor and they say, I'm having really bad pains, and then what does the doctor say sometimes? Do they say, oh, well, everyone gets bad period pains, just have a bit of Nurofen? Is that what sometimes happens, Valentina?
Period and pelvic pain is a silent public health pandemic. It affects 9 out of 10 women. And research from the British Medical Journal tells us that we lose 9 to 12 productive days each year to period pain. But we can't really blame medical professionals. We can't blame GPs. We can't blame the NHS because there isn't research that they can rely on. We have massively underfunded gynecological health as a whole. Currently, we spend only about 2.4% of our entire public health budget for the entirety of women's health. So that 2.4% is measly, and it has to stretch to cover breast cancer, maternity care, menopause, endometriosis. And because women were not allowed to take part in clinical trials up until 1993, we don't really know how most modern medications affect the female physiology versus the male physiology.
The People's Channel.
Welcome back. Time is 3:39 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, a pro-immigration Quango is demanding a jihadi bride currently in a Syrian prison with Shamima Begum should be allowed the right to return to Britain because she needs NHS health care. Here's the question: should Islamists who once vowed to destroy Britain ever be allowed back into our country? Well, let's have a chat about this now with the human rights lawyer Shoaib Khan. Mr. Khan, welcome to the show. I put it to you, when you leave the United Kingdom and you join the Islamic State, whose entire raison d'etre is the evisceration of the United Kingdom, you forfeit your right to ever return.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't agree. I mean, I think British citizenship, or indeed citizenship of any country, has to mean something. Otherwise, what does it mean? And that's something, everyone says, we're so proud, we're British, we're Britain. Every country says that. So what does citizenship mean then if, you've committed an offense? I mean, I would say the worst war criminal, the biggest terrorist in the world. I mean, you are where you're from. If you're German, you're German. If you're Austrian, you're Austrian. If you're, Nigerian, you're Nigerian. I think that's such a ridiculous thing to say, suddenly somehow she's not British anymore. Of course she is. We made her what she is. Whatever happened to her, she went up there and bring her back. Let's see what she has to say for herself. If she has to be punished, she should be punished.
But Home Secretaries have the power, and indeed have used the power, to rescind the citizenship of people like Shamima Begum because they deem that the security risk to the United Kingdom is simply too great. So there you go. Citizenship isn't a God-given right. It can be taken back. In this case, it was. And I think a lot of people will say, well, good, because why would we welcome anybody back into Britain who could still represent a terror threat? You don't know the full picture. I don't know the full picture. Perhaps the immigration authorities do know the full picture, and that's why the best place for her is to remain in a Syrian jail.
I mean, firstly, I think the important thing here obviously is that we don't know and you don't know. I think that's the important thing to keep in mind here. But obviously the judges do, and that's why the judges said that the Secretary of State has to reconsider the case. And secondly, intelligence cases, no.
I'll interject there.
MI5 was supporting her case.
No, I'll interject there. This is a decision that's being leveraged. Pressure is being applied on the Home Secretary by the Special Immigration Appeals Commission, a Quango set up by Tony Blair's government in 1997. It is a group of judges, you're right, like the Sentencing Council is a group of judges. But how are they applying pressure to a Home Secretary? Nobody votes for these people.
Okay, so you've got that completely wrong then. So basically, it is a court. It's an immigration court, basically. It might be called a commission, but it's basically a court. Those are the judges who decide the case. And they just basically looked at the case, looked at the facts. And the only reason that it's a special court is because some of the things that they investigate or look into are security sensitive. And therefore, their judgments are not openly published like other judgments are. That's the only, but it is basically a court. So the court looked at it and said, the Secretary of State should look at the case again. And as far as I know, again, the very little we know from the media reports, even I think an MI5 officer suggested, yes, she should be brought back. But also, I mean, another huge thing that we seem to be missing here, obviously we're talking about her citizenship, but she has a child, a British child. That child's British citizenship, as far as I know, has not been revoked.
Mr. Khan, she had the child. She gave birth to the child in Syria. You're right, a British mother, so I guess British citizenship via the back door that way. But the child was born in Syria. She made her choice when she joined the Islamic State, a death cult that wants Britain removed from the map and replaced by a caliphate. That was the Islamic State's mindset. She willingly joined it, and now she needs NHS healthcare. Why should British taxpayers pick up the bill for her terrible life decisions?
Because, yes, that's the whole point. It's just a terrible life decision. So, you know, I mean, but she's British, and I don't, what do you mean by back door? I mean,
the terrorist.
I don't know, how are you British? How am I British? Because our mothers were British. I mean, I don't know about yourself,
the child was born in Syria.
So what difference does that make? The law says that wherever a British woman gives birth, the child is British, and so it is. Unless we're saying we're making an exception for Syrians.
So every terrorist languishing in any jail around the world, any Islamist terrorist that wants us gone, simply has to have a child, and you'll welcome them back into Britain.
If they're British, then yes, of course. So that's the whole point. If you're British, then yes. Otherwise, what does British citizenship mean? It stands for nothing, then, does it? I mean, because so many serious criminals
in the same way, having a child gets you a lesser sentence in the eyes of the Sentencing Council. You say having a child, if you're a terrorist abroad, should automatically give you a right to return back to Britain. What message does that send out to terrorists across the planet?
The message it sends that British citizenship actually means something, and just because you behave badly, you made the worst decision in the world.
Have a baby and come back. Yeah.
We're not going to take your British citizenship away. Otherwise, what does that? She's not Syrian. Why is she in a Syrian camp? She's got nothing to do with Syria or with any other country. Yes,
well, the baby was born in Syria.
Sorry?
The baby was born in Syria. That makes it Syrian, does it not?
So are you saying he's Syrian? Are you saying every baby born in the UK is British? No, they're not. Because if a Nigerian woman gives birth in the UK, the baby is Nigerian. So So using your logic, then, say for example, I don't know, an Afghani person has a child in Britain, and lawyers like you would use that as a reason to keep that adult in Britain because the child was born in Britain. The child's suddenly British, except if you're a terrorist and you have a baby in Syria, that child's British. It's not Syrian. If the parents are Afghan and the child is born, he's not British. That's the law. Of course, we don't have birthright British citizenship in the UK. Of course,
but it's used by lawyers like you all the time to keep people in Britain. Having children is a way of getting a right to remain. It's a commonly used tool.
So are you agreeing with us? Then you're basically saying that's what it should be. Wherever the child is born, he should stay there. That's what you're saying? So that's what the child is born in Syria. He should spend his whole life in Syria, in a camp in Syria. And I mean, I don't know how old the child is, but
I'm saying that,
10 years old.
Yes, I am saying that. I'm saying that because the mother made a terrible decision. She joined a terrorist cult that wants us dead, and her child that she chose to have is born in Syria, the country she chose to make her home. I say that child is Syrian.
Well, the law doesn't agree with you. No law agrees. And that's not how the laws of this country work, at least. I mean, I wish I could. Is that basically what you're saying? So an Afghan couple, any couple has a child in the UK, the child must be British. Is that what you're saying? Because the parents made the decision to be in the UK, make the UK their home, and therefore they give birth to a child. The child must be, so the child's no longer Afghan, he's British now. Is that what you're saying? I don't think that makes any sense.
No, for a matter of simple consistency, I say if you're a British citizen who goes to Syria, and particularly if you're a terrorist, and you have a child in Syria, that child's Syrian, OK? And then if you're an Afghan...
Because the mother's a terrorist, or because it was born in Syria?
A bit of both, but mainly because the child was born in Syria. I don't see why you don't understand that.
Because that's not. Firstly, that's not what the law is. But secondly, is that what you're saying? Anyone comes to the UK, commits an offence here, and then the child is automatically British because you decided to go to another country and commit a crime there. How does that make any sense at all?
I'm being told we have to move on. I think I've made my point resolutely clear. If a child is born in Syria, they're Syrian. I'm being told we have to move on. Thank you very much for joining us.
Around as well. Any child born in the UK is British.
I'm being told I've got to move on. We return to this another time. My point, seriously, I hope I made clearly there, is that if you come to Britain and you're, say, an Afghani and you have a child in this country, by your reckoning, You're reckoning he's gone. I've been told we have to move on. Did people at home get my point, or was I just talking insanities there? You let me know. Now, if there's some holiday sun, here's a forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello. Well, if you are off on your Easter break, it is colder in the southeast Mediterranean at the moment. Having a look at the detail, we've got some colder air coming down from the Arctic, so actually much below average for the time of year. Across parts of Italy, there is some sunshine, especially then more so across France, parts of Spain and Portugal. But towards the far west, we will see outbreaks of rain and some showers. And then as we go through the week, many places will see some sunshine before it turns a little bit downhill later.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello again, here's your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. More sunshine to come as we go through the next few days. Worth bearing in mind though, our nights will be a little bit chilly, and with that we could see a few pockets of mist and fog. But the reason why it's mostly fine at the moment, well, high pressure. It's not going anywhere for the time being, so it's going to continue to dominate our weather, bringing the settled conditions and the largely sunny skies. The sunny skies then leads to a clear night for most of us, a bit of cloud around Orkney and Shetland, and worth bearing in mind there'll be some low clouds, some mist, some fog developing around the Humber as well, and a few pockets of mist and fog could develop elsewhere, but most of us having a dry, clear night. With that then, temperatures taking a bit of a dip, so a chilly start to tomorrow morning. There could be a touch of frost in some prone spots. As we go through the day though, most of any mist and fog patches will gradually clear away as we go through the morning. There may be a zone of something a little bit cloudier around the London area for a time, but otherwise lots of sunshine on offer. Some eastern parts of Scotland, maybe into northeast England and around the Humber here, any mist and fog could take a little while to clear as we go through the day, but otherwise it is going to be a fine picture and plenty of sunshine. Yet again, away from perhaps the far north of Scotland, still a bit of nagging cloud around, similar to today really. Otherwise, as we go through the day, yes, lots of sunshine on offer, a bit more high-level cloud than we'll have seen through today, and so the sunshine may be a bit hazy at times, but nonetheless plenty of blue skies on offer, and with that it is going to feel pretty warm indeed. Temperatures similar, maybe even a touch higher than today, so highs of around 18 or 19 Celsius, pretty warm indeed. Staying fine as we go through the end of tomorrow as well. More fine weather through the evening and overnight. Again, a few pockets of mist and fog perhaps as we go overnight into Wednesday. But high pressure is going to stick around for a little while yet, so it is staying generally dry and often sunny as we go through the rest of the week. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Mark Daubney Show. Now then, the iconic RAF Red Arrow's jets are in danger of being replaced by Russian jets loved by Vladimir Putin in a move slammed as outrageous. Let's speak now with the former RAF fighter pilot and instructor, Tim Davies. Tim, welcome to the show. So Sir Keir Starmer was probed on this matter at the Jaguar Land Rover plant earlier on. He said, no, they won't be built by Russia, but he didn't say they definitely will be built in Britain. Surely the Red Arrows should be British.
Yeah, he says a lot of things, doesn't he? But the British people, Martin, we know, we've got onto Starmer, we understand him. Look, it's an Italian airplane based on a Russian design. Let's get it right, and it's a good airplane, the M346. We've got Royal Air Force pilots training out on that aircraft already, but primarily, Martin, it's because the aircraft we're using in fast jet training, the one that I taught on for a decade, is unfortunately failing. It has engine problems, so we've outsourced the training. But either way, we need to train British pilots on British airplanes, and we need to promote British industry, and that's something we're very poor at.
And I believe that the factory in Yorkshire that made these Hawks closed in 2020, another failure. How on earth can we let strategic industries like that lapse into closure, Tim?
Well, because the uni party are idiots. We all know that, of course. We'd rather just bring in cheap goods from overseas and then watch our own industries destroy itself, wonder why we're not a world power anymore. We know how it is, and you promote good content on your channel, as we know. We need to start getting behind this. We need to start buying British. And there are companies that are building British. We're just neglecting them because it's an easier thing to go out and invest in some other company overseas, isn't it? It's ridiculous.
I think you're exactly right. But do you think that the Red Arrow must be British?
Well, obviously, I mean, it's ridiculous to think of anything else. Can you imagine us flying an Italian aircraft based on a Russian design? It's a mockery of the entire country. You know what? I honestly think, Martin, this is intentional now. I think it's being done on purpose to bring down the United Kingdom. I'm not standing for it. I don't know about you. I know the people on your channel won't stand for it either. But we need to start thinking strategically on this. We need to make sure, we need to campaign with our politicians to make these things British again. This is the Royal Air Force Red Arrows. They're the premier aerobatic display team in the world. I mean, this is the oldest Royal Air Force in the world. It's over 100 years old. It's trained all the other air forces around the world and the Commonwealth. I know that because I trained all the pilots that came in to the Royal Air Force to be trained. It's an absolute mockery, the whole thing. I can't believe it's going to happen. I honestly don't believe it will, but we've got to be sensible about it.
Tim Davies, a speech worthy of a Red Arrows fly past. Thank you very much for joining us on the show. Always a pleasure. Plenty more to come, including, is it time to ditch net zero altogether? That's with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's News Channel. Now it's your weather, your wonderful weather with Alex Burgill.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again. Here's your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. More sunshine to come as we go through the next few days. Worth bearing in mind, though, our nights will be a little bit chilly, and with that, we could see a few pockets of mist and fog. But the reason why it's mostly fine at the moment, well, high pressure. It's not going anywhere for the time being, so it's going to continue to dominate our weather, bringing the settled conditions and the largely sunny skies. The sunny skies then leads to a clear night for most of us, but a cloud around Orkney and Shetland, and worth bearing in mind there'll be some low clouds, some mist, some fog developing around the Humber as well, and a few pockets of mist and fog could develop elsewhere, but most of us having a dry, clear night. With that then, temperatures taking a bit of a dip, so a chilly start to tomorrow morning. There could be a touch of frost in some prone spots. As we go through the day, though, most of any mist and fog patches will gradually clear away as we go through the morning. There may be a zone of something a little bit cloudier around the London area for a time, but otherwise lots of sunshine on offer. Some eastern parts of Scotland, maybe into northeast England and around the Humber here, any mist and fog could take a little while to clear as we go through the day, but otherwise it is going to be a fine picture and plenty of sunshine. Yet again, away from perhaps the far north of Scotland, still a bit of nagging cloud around, similar to today really. Otherwise, as we go through the day, yes, lots of sunshine on offer, a bit more high-level cloud than we'll have seen through today, and so the sunshine may be a bit hazy at times, but nonetheless plenty of blue skies on offer, and with that it is going to feel pretty warm indeed. Temperatures similar, maybe even a touch higher than today, so highs of around 18 or 19 Celsius, pretty warm indeed. Staying fine as we go through the end of tomorrow as well. More fine weather through the evening and overnight. Again, a few pockets of mist and fog perhaps as we go overnight into Wednesday. But high pressure is going to stick around for a little while yet, so it is staying generally dry and often sunny as we go through the rest of the week. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Alan Wright in South Yorkshire. Delays on the M18 southbound after a vehicle fire between junction 5 for the M180 and junction 4 for Westmoor. In Surrey, the M25 anti-clockwise is queuing after a breakdown. That's between junction 6 for Godstone and junction 5 for the M26. And in Hampshire, delays on the M27. You've got lane closures both ways for roadworks between Southampton Airport at junction 5 and junction 8, the turn-off for Hamble.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For a chance to win a motorhome and cash, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays, I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
A very, very good afternoon to you. It's 4 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, as Donald Trump's tariffs bite hard, Keir Starmer has watered down Britain's net zero targets. The good news is van drivers won't have to go fully electric until 2035. But is it time to go the full Monty? Should we use this opportunity to ditch net zero altogether? And while we're at it, slash taxes and regulation to channel Brexit and get Britain booming again. And the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has announced that the first phase of the Southport inquiry is starting today. What answers can we expect from the triple murder of those girls by Axel Rudick-Urbano? We'll have the latest with our Home and Security Editor. And a damning new study has shown that only 10% of young British Muslims think that Britain is a tolerant country, and 50% are growing more alienated as a result. Can anything be done to boost integration, or does this study show that this laudable goal is but a mere pipe dream? And a Kent pub landlord has sparked a huge debate after his pub became the first in Britain to ban smoking everywhere, including even in the pub garden. With some locals threatening to bar the boozer, I'll be joined by the landlord of the Hope Inn, who says if smokers don't like it, they can go elsewhere. And that's all coming up in your next hour. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. Sir Keir Starmer today at the Jaguar Land Rover plant in the West Midlands saying that the net zero targets have been a bit harsh on Britain. Good ideas, the Prime Minister. People may cry, how about we slash these targets altogether rather than making us buy electric cars 5 years later? How about giving beleaguered white van men? How about giving working families a real cut? How about scrapping those net zero targets altogether? Or is clean air paramount? And that should be our goal and not the pounds and the pence in your pocket. Let me know your thoughts. I'm about to have a debate on this one by going to gbnews.com/your say. But now it's your headlines, and here's Sam Francis.
A very good afternoon to you at just after 4 o'clock. The top story this hour, Sir Keir Starmer is calling for cool heads as global markets plunge further in response to Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs. Speaking at a Jaguar Land Rover plant hit by 25% US tax, the Prime Minister said Britain must rise together in a new era of global instability. He also called it a moment of urgency and vowed to fight for a US deal and ramp up global trade talks. Well, that comes as the FTSE 100 plunged today to its lowest level in a year, down almost 6%, fuelled by fears of a deepening trade war. Germany and France have seen even steeper falls, and Wall Street is suffering its worst two-day drop since World War II. Last night, President Donald Trump said that tariffs were medicine for investors, adding that he would not do a deal with China until the US trade deficit was addressed. In other news, a public inquiry is now underway into the Southport murders that shocked the nation last summer. Axel Rudakabana was jailed for at least 52 years for killing 3 young girls and trying to murder 10 others. The probe will ask how he slipped through the cracks despite referrals to Prevent and 6 separate police call-outs. It's being led by top judge Sir Adrian Fulford and will hear evidence from 15 major bodies, including MI5 and the NHS. The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, says families deserve answers and that urgent lessons must be learned. The Kremlin says President Putin does support a ceasefire in Ukraine, but insists key questions must still be answered. Officials claim no one has provided Russia with clarity on a potential deal. And on the global economy, Moscow is warning the outlook is very tense. Russian authorities say they're watching oil prices very closely as market fears grow. The comments come amid that deepening uncertainty over the war and its economic fallout. 2 Labour MPs denied entry to Israel are now heading home after being accused of planning to spread anti-Israel hatred. 2 Labour MPs denied entry to Israel have now headed home. Abtisam Mohammed and Yang were deported, sparking political fallout back in Westminster. Kemi Badenoch says Israel is an ally and democracy, and she's not surprised by the move. Foreign Secretary David Lammy, though, called her comments disgraceful. The Conservatives hit back, with Richard Holden accusing Labour of double standards.
Israel has a right to choose who goes into its country and not. It's the only open democracy in the Middle East. There is real criticism, believe me, within Israel both ways, and there's a proper democratic debate ongoing in there. I find it particularly bizarre when Labour MPs are calling for the Prime Minister of Israel to be arrested, that if he ever came to the UK, that at the same time they're saying that we can't even, and these aren't people being arrested, these people have been denied entry to Israel. It smacks of double standards from this Labour government to me.
The King and Queen have arrived in Italy for a state visit, beginning a 4-day tour of Rome and Ravenna. A planned meeting with Pope Francis has been postponed due to his ill health, but King Charles will be meeting the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni and address a joint session of Parliament. Their Majesties will also mark their 20th wedding anniversary during the trip. And our royal correspondent Cameron Walker is in Rome for us.
This is a chance for the UK government to use the King's soft power to strengthen relations between Britain and Italy. This is in the context, of course, of tariffs being imposed on both the EU and the UK by President Trump, the UK and Italy working together to combat illegal migration, and, of course, 2 NATO allies showing military strength in the face of Russian aggression in Eastern Europe. The King and Queen arriving later on today.
Cameron Walker there for us in Rome. And finally, Blondie's legendary drummer Clem Burke has sadly died at the age of 70 after what the band called a private battle with cancer. Described as the heartbeat of Blondie, he powered the sound of the band through the 1975s and onwards and helped keep the band together through its wildest years. He also played with the Ramones, Eurythmics, Iggy Pop and even Bob Dylan. And in 2006, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, staying behind the kit right until the end. Those are the latest headlines. I'll be back with you in around half an hour's time. Now, though, it's over to Martin.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sam. Now, as Trump's tariffs continue to bite, our Prime Minister has watered down Britain's net zero targets. The good news for van drivers is they won't have to go fully electric until 2035. But is it time to go the full Monty? Should we ditch net zero? And while we're at it, slash taxes and red tape to get Britain booming again? Let's go now to Birmingham to speak to GB News' political editor, Chris Hope. Chris was there earlier on with the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, at the Jaguar Land Rover plant. The car's still rolling off the production line. And Sir Keir Starmer seemed to be channeling his inner Brexiteer. Let's rewire the economy, rip up regulation, water down net zero, accelerate trade deals across the world. Yet meanwhile, the markets have still got the jitters. Chris, you were there. Tell us more.
That's right, Martin. Yeah, the Land Rovers were, or the Range Rovers were, rolling off the production line at JLR's base here in Solihull moments ago, as the PM talked about easing that electric vehicle mandate, which requires manufacturers to sell a certain number of electric vehicles every year going into the 2030s. That will now be released, and also other measures too. The PM said he was open to other options for other parts of our economy, maybe glass bottle manufacturing. That could be the next on the list. There are concerns this net zero mandate is going to be a problem for companies as they try to move pace and ensure that we do help the country go towards this net zero target. But for many, with the ISA deadline, investing in ISAs closing on Saturday night, many have invested in stocks and shares. ISAs, as you do at the end of the tax year, are seeing their savings tank because of the Trump slump, this slump on the stock markets fueled by Donald Trump's protectionist new policies. And I asked him on behalf of GB News viewers and listeners, you said, the PM said there, that he's got our back of our viewers and listeners. He said that the old assumptions don't apply anymore. So would he stick to the pledge made in last July's general election, not to increase national insurance, VAT or income tax for the lifetime of this Parliament? And here's what he told me earlier.
Chris, we made that commitment in the manifesto, we were absolutely clear about going into the budget and the spring statement, and that is a commitment we've made and a commitment that we will keep, because the first lever can't be more taxes. My strong belief is that we have to grow our economy, create the conditions for investment, which we have done. There's been record investment coming into our economy. Now, in the light of these challenges, we have to go further and faster in the changes we're making, whether that's to do with regulation, whether it's to do with the EV mandate, to make it more flexible so that businesses like this can thrive and meet the challenges. We have to push on into that space. So I'm still strongly of the view that the challenge we face is how to grow our economy, not just the sort of familiar tax and spend levers.
So there you are, Martin. Regulation, further measures maybe to weaken even further the EV mandate. But what he wouldn't mention also in another other answer about the fiscal rules. But as things stand, this PM is saying no increase in those three areas, VAT, national insurance or income tax, until 2030, despite the difficulties on the stock market. That is at least some good news in a turbulent day.
You know what, Chris? I was speaking to Michael Simmons, the economics editor at The Spectator, and he was saying he spent his weekend speaking with merchant bankers and experts around the world, saying the fiscal situation where we're at now, we have another £22 billion black hole. That's the value that's been wiped off the British economy since the tariffs came in. News out also that the budget is costing one job every 9 minutes. And he was saying that the only way that the experts are saying to get out of this is tax rises or austerity. Well, he said to you today, Chris, if we believe him, no tax rises. He said before, no austerity rises. What's left? Jeremy Corbyn's magic money tree?
Well, some are saying the benefits bill will be cut further. Of course, $5 billion is really a drop in the ocean compared to the scale of what the forecast benefits bill is likely to be by the end of the decade. And also maybe loosening the rules on borrowing. Now, those are rules, the fiscal rules were set by Rachel Reeves to try and reassure the markets that the concerns over Liz Truss won't happen again under the Labour government. Will he play with those rules? That's one option, but certainly no more tax rises, and also the welfare budget and other spending. And of course, they're looking at regulation, and what that involves is talking to other quangos, non-governmental departmental bodies, seeing if they can cut back any regulation they've got to try and get the economy going. I think the gloves are off. This is a government which is turning to face Brexit, and for me, grasp the opportunities of being outside the European Union, take advantage of our 10% tariffs, not 20%, and trade with other countries, notably India. Brexit is now the buzzword back in Whitehall.
Chris Hope, who would have thought it? Who would have thought that Sir Keir Starmer's government would have to say, yeah, do you know what? Brexit was best for Britain. Chris Hope, what an amazing day. Thank you very, very much for joining us on the show, and we'll speak to you again in the next hour. Always a pleasure. Well, let's get some more reaction now by speaking to the head of policy at the Global Warming Policy Foundation, Harry Wilkinson. Harry, welcome to the show. A lot of people have been saying that net zero is literally a handbrake, not only on our motoring industry, but the entire nation. We have the most expensive electricity in the Western world. We cannot compete industrially. We can't compete in terms of our exports. And as a consequence, a lot of people are starting to say, will actually this blip, this Trump slump, give the opportunity, the cover for our Prime Minister to ditch net zero altogether? Are you optimistic?
Good afternoon, Martin. Well, I don't think there's the signs of that happening just yet. You know, this is a real missed opportunity from the Prime Minister today. He could have taken this chance to perhaps scrap the ZEV mandate altogether. This is the policy that Chris was just talking about, which actually forces people to buy EVs, regardless of whether they want to or not. There's been some flexibility introduced with those targets in terms of credits that car manufacturers can used to make up for some of those missed targets, but they're still going to be fined £12,000 for every missed vehicle rather than £15,000. So it's not that much of a change. And actually, this is relying on changes in consumer behaviour. But we know, consumers are going to be better off if they're just allowed to choose which vehicles that they would like to buy. The motor car wasn't forced on the public. People adopted this change. So if we really believe people like Keir Starmer or Ed Miliband when they say that, EVs are going to be better, consumers are going to prefer them, that should be up to the market. They shouldn't be imposing EVs on people like that with the ZEV mandate, because that can only leave people worse off. We heard the boss of Ford today say that this wasn't the giant leap required. Of course it wasn't. That is a business that has excelled producing petrol cars for the British public. And unfortunately, it went along with this completely fantastical plan that we would just shift magically and very quickly to EVs.
OK, Harry Wilkinson, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us today on GB News, because moving on swiftly, King Charles and Queen Camilla are to begin their state visit to Italy today. They will travel to Rome and Ravenna, and during the visit, the couple will meet with Pope Francis, President Sergio Mattarella and also Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, whilst King Charles is due to deliver an address to a joint session of Parliament. Let's cross now and speak with GB News' royal correspondent Cameron Walker, who is in Rome. Cameron, the royals about to land. Tell us more.
Yes, literally in the last few moments, Martin, the King and Queen landed in Rome on a UK government flight, an Airbus A321neo, decked out in the Union flag, escorted by 2 Air Force jets as well. Incredibly loud and noisy when they landed. You may just be able to see over my left-hand shoulder the Guard of Honour assembling by the steps where the King and Queen, as they taxi round to my position here, they're going to be rolling out the red carpet for the Italians to start the state visit here to Italy for the King and Queen. It is the 18th official visit of the King to the country, but of course historic because it is the first as sovereign. The last time he was here was in October 2021, just a few months really, well 11 months to be precise, before he became King. And among those greeting His Majesty is the UK ambassador to Italy, Lord Llewellyn. He used to be David Cameron's right man, but he spoke to us a little bit earlier on and he told us why he thinks this state visit in particular is so important.
So this visit will deliver a meaningful and broad legacy. Above all, Their Majesties will do something intangible but priceless. Their visit will strengthen the closeness between our nations in a way that only they can, creating memories that will last a generation. Their love for Italy and all things Italian, the things Italians cherish, culture, food, heritage, resonate very, very deeply here. So a lot to look forward to in the next few days. A state visit that brings together, quite simply, the best of Italy and the best of Britain, the closest of friends, allies and partners.
Now, originally, of course, this was going to be 2 state visits, one to the Holy See and one to Italy. But because of the Pope's ongoing health issues, that state visit was postponed a couple of weeks ago. So we're not expecting the King and Queen to be meeting Pope Francis while he is here in Italy. But of course, it's all about the soft power that the King musters, because that soft power can lead to, let's say, hard power. The Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, is also here in Italy. His Italian counterparts, including, because of course this is a very significant moment, because it's just days since President Trump in the United States imposed those tariffs on both the EU and the United Kingdom, which is going to significantly impact exports to Italy and the United Kingdom.
Okay, thank you very much, Cameron. And just to repeat there, the royals have landed in Italy a few minutes ago. They're just still about to disembark. We'll cross back to that. It's got live pictures on your screen. That is the royal Airbus landed. The royal couple, the King and the Queen Camilla, are just about to get off when the landing gear is, disembark gear is coupled with that. And just to repeat, significant meetings ahead. We just learned there, unfortunately, the visit with Pope Francis, that was due to take place tomorrow as part of the state visit to the Holy See. That's been postponed due to the Pontiff's recent ill health. But lest we forget, only last week, the royal visit to Italy in itself was in jeopardy because of the King's health. But then, of course, he was given the all clear. So now the royals have landed, and then meetings with President Sergio Mattarella and Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni are set to follow, and that will be on Wednesday. We'll have full pictures, luckily, as the royal family. Yeah, we can see them actually now taxiing down the runway. That is the royal jet that will taxi towards us, and we can see the stairs here, the steps ready to couple with that. So just to repeat, historic meetings with President Sergio Mattarella and Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni will follow on Wednesday. And then King Charles is due to deliver an address to a joint session of Parliament. Let's hope he gets the same warm response in the Italian Parliament that Zelensky received in our Parliament. A state banquet takes place at an Italian palace that evening. Sadly, as we just learned, the visit with Pope Francis will no longer go ahead due to the Pontiff's health. But of course, as I said, there were fears that this trip would not even go ahead at all due to the King's health. But of course, he was mercifully given the all clear. And as Cameron Walker was saying, this is precisely the kind of soft power that the royal family is best at, We saw a magnificent trip to Australia and a magnificent trip ahead here now with Italy. Cameron Walker is there as the royal jet taxis into view. Cameron, we can see it just hoving into view above your shoulder there. Tell us more about what we can expect.
Yes, an incredibly busy schedule, Martin, as you were just describing there. And of course, that soft power that he musters. He is expected to have an audience with Prime Minister Meloni. And we know, of course, Prime Minister Meloni of Italy and Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer have been working together to combat illegal migration, amongst other things as well. But of course, the King not being involved in political meetings, it is that soft power, that soft diplomacy, which carries out in the forefront, because then behind the scenes with government ministers such as David Lammy and his Italian counterparts will be busy in those political meetings behind the scenes. But there is expected to be the joint military strength of the UK and Italy on the show here over the next 4 days. Not only have we got a guard of honour ready to greet the King as he departs the plane in just a few moments' time, we are expecting a joint military fly past, including the RAF Red Arrows here over Rome. That's expected to happen tomorrow because, of course, the UK and Italy, two NATO allies. And in the face of Russian aggression in Ukraine and the ongoing war in Ukraine and the instability of Eastern Europe, that is something both the UK government and the Italian government is really wanting to portray here. So we are expecting the King and Queen, who flew in from Bryce Norton, to embark their plane very, very shortly. As I said, there is going to be a guard of honour. Both national anthems are going to be played as well. A number of dignitaries, both from the UK and Italy, are going to be on the tarmac to greet them, including the UK ambassador to the UK, Lord Llewellyn. We are also expecting the defence attaché at the British Embassy in Italy, Colonel Matthew Smith. Another nod, of course, to NATO and his Italian counterpart, or I should say the Italian Air Force Commander, Colonel Marco Angori, as well. So it is that kind of shared strength, the two countries sharing the bilateral relationship and improving that bilateral relationship, because when it comes to those tough political negotiations behind the scenes, it's that soft power that the King musters, which is really going to shine through over the next 4 days. So, as I said, the Vatican part of the state visit, that has been postponed. So Italy has been spread over a number of days here, but we do hear from Buckingham Palace sources that some of the engagements have been lengthened, so the King's going to be spending longer at some of these engagements. So there's certainly no sign from him that he is slowing down even, because of course just a couple of weeks ago he had what sources described as a bump in the road, where he ended up in hospital briefly because of an adverse reaction to his cancer treatment. But in terms of the engagements he's got going on, Martin, over the next 4 days or so, there's no sign that he's slowing down. If anything, he's kind of ramping it up. It's a number of engagements, quite an intense days, and it's not just here in Rome. He's also going to be travelling to Ravenna to celebrate the 80th anniversary of British and Canadian troops liberating that province from Nazi occupation 80 years ago in 1945. And of course the King, head of state in the UK as well as Canada. So we are expecting troops from both countries to take part in that. And of course this is all in the face of President Trump perhaps alluding to the fact that he would one day like Canada to be the 51st state even of the United States. So the Guard of Honour, made up of the Army, Air Force and Navy here in Italy, are just marching towards the aircrafts now, the UK government's Airbus A321neo, and then the King and Queen will, we expect, depart the aircraft, or get out the aircraft from the front steps. The red carpet has well and truly been rolled out on this historic state visit.
Yeah, very much live pictures there. We can see the cameraman marching closer to that royal Airbus. As you say, Cameron Walker, the red carpet fully in place now. A spectacular sight. What a majestic jet with the Union flag on the tail there. And I think we're waiting for the royal door about to be thrown open, Cameron Walker.
Yes, we certainly are, and the Italian flag is being taken out of the cockpit window, as well as the royal standard. They are flying high, of course, accompanied by the magnificent Union flag on the tail of this UK government's plane. This is basically brand Britain, Martin, isn't it, on the world stage? And we are expecting, in fact, speaking to the the UK ambassador to Italy earlier on, he was describing it as showcasing the best of Britain here in Italy, in the EU, and of course showcasing the best of Italy, celebrating that bilateral relationship, the close relationship these two nations have in the global context of the imposing tariffs with President Trump and the Russian aggression on in Eastern Europe. But of course, we're 5 years on now from Brexit as well, and of course I think it shows that the UK government is still friendly with European nations. And as I said earlier, Martin, we know that Prime Minister Meloni of Italy has been working pretty hard, we believe, with Prime Minister Starmer to combat illegal migration. Of course, that's not come to fruition just yet, but it's those kind of issues which can be highlighted in a state visit such as this.
Yeah, and it's funny how times change. In 2021, David Lammy, our foreign minister, criticised our royal family as from Germany. We have a monarchy from Germany, and again now is in power, having to be a bit more humble about matters. Cameron Walker, just as we saw with his previous comments about Donald Trump. I digress. Isn't it magnificent to see the royal standard flapping there in the cockpit at the head of that beautiful aircraft? And this really is about not just projecting royal power, soft power, but brand Britain on the world stage. The jet looks majestic. The jet looks absolutely majestic. And the Pope did make a public appearance yesterday at St. Peter's Square. He had an oxygen tube. He's going well, but not well enough to take a royal visit from the King and Queen, Cameron Walker.
No, exactly. There's certainly no plans for the King or Queen to meet Pope Francis. As you said, he was spotted over the weekend in St. Peter's Square, but he didn't look particularly well, did he? So the Vatican asked Buckingham Palace to postpone that state's visit a couple of weeks ago. So it has been the working assumption over the last few weeks, so that this is purely just going to be one state's visit to Italy, to Rome. We know Pope Francis, wishing him well, but the King's focus here is very much on strengthening those relations between Italy and the United Kingdom with his soft power. And you mentioned David Lammy, their Foreign Secretary, Martin. I can see him from my position here, lined up on the red carpet, ready to greet his sovereign alongside his Italian counterpart, as well as the UK ambassador to Italy and the Italian ambassador to the UK. I can spot them as well on the red carpet, as well as specially chosen guard of honour from all three armed forces here in Italy, the Army, Air Force and indeed Navy too. And it is, of course, a very special moment because it is the 18th visit or official visit for King Charles to Italy, but the first as head of state, and he will become the first British monarch in history of the Italian Parliament here in just a few days' time. And it's particularly poignant for the King and Queen because they are going to be working on their 20th wedding anniversary, because that's happening on Wednesday, and they will be guests of honour at a black tie states banquet. The aircraft door of this UK government's plane has just opened, which I suspect means the King and Queen will be leaving that plane very shortly. So in the next few moments, if you're watching us on television, you should see His Majesty King Charles and Queen. Here he is, His Majesty the King, just exiting the aircraft now, with Queen Camilla just behind him. And for those of you listening on the radio, the King and Queen are walking down the aircraft steps onto that red carpet to be greeted by both Italian and British dignitaries. I can tell you that Her Majesty the Queen is wearing a Fiona Clare blue crepe dress. No outfit details for His Majesty the King, although of course they don't usually give us those details in advance. The King and Queen staff are walking down the aircraft steps as well, their equerries, their private secretaries and communication secretary as well. So the King is meeting the Italian Foreign Minister Bruno Antoni Pasquino, and the Foreign Secretary to Britain, David Lammy, of course, His Majesty's Ambassador to Italy, Lord Llewellyn, and the Italian Ambassador to the UK and his wife, Inigo Lambertini, the Defence Attaché to the British Embassy in Italy, Colonel Matthew Smith, is also greeting His Majesty there, and the Commander of the First Wing of the Italian Air Force, Colonel Marco Angori. So they are the dignitaries lined up to greet His Majesty, or their Majesties I should say, on the red carpet here. You're watching live pictures from Rome as the King and Queen start their 4-day state visit to Italy. The King's 18th official visit to the country, but the first as monarch. And to the right-hand side of the red carpet is a guard of honour. We're also expecting a military band at some point in the next few minutes to play the national anthems of the United Kingdom and indeed Italy. The King and Queen just exchanging a few words, a few pleasant words on the red carpet there. He appears in quite good spirits and appears like he's going to be enjoying his time here in Italy. I can't quite hear what they're saying from my position, I'm afraid, but no doubt we will hear murmurings of what was discussed on the red carpet. The King and Queen just making their way now towards our position here, past the Guard of Honour, made up of the Italian and the Italian Armed Forces. Companies there.
Cameron Walker,
by
just
the
to
British and Italian ambassadors.
Cameron, just to bring viewers up to speed about the situation with that visit to Pope Francis. It had initially been penciled in, but then it was postponed. Do we know the full reasonings why?
Yes, so originally when Buckingham Palace announced that this state visit was taking place, originally there was 2 state visits on the cards, Martin, because of course the Holy See, where the Pope is the Pope spent more than a month in hospital battling double pneumonia. The Vatican asked Buckingham Palace to postpone that state visit, which is why the King and Queen being here today, we are just expecting 1 state visit to be taking place, and that is, of course, the Italian state visit. We are not expecting, there are no plans for the King and Queen to meet Pope Francis. Of course, we did see him over the weekend in St. Peter's Square in the Vatican, but there are still no plans for the King and Queen to meet him. So what Buckingham Palace have done, have spread out their Italian engagements over the day, which was expected to be in the Vatican, and also added extra elements, we're told, to those engagements to make up the time. So the King is not going to be resting, even though he's only technically got 2/3 of the engagements to get through. He's making the most of his time here in Italy, his short time, relatively speaking, here in Italy, just 4 days. He's just joking with the press, the King there, as his car was stopped by one of the cars in front. But the Royal Standard flying high above the State Bentley, the King and Queen just giving a wave to the press here as they depart the airport here in Rome. And of course, a full day of engagements tomorrow we're expecting, Martin, and there will be a joint flypast, including the RAF Red Arrows.
And Cameron Walker, on a day where all eyes are on the British motor industry, how magnificent is the Royal Bentley? Look at it. Deep aubergine, beautiful, sleek, gorgeous, like a mansion on wheels. Really is a vehicle fitting for royalty. And Cameron Walker, I couldn't help but smile when you mentioned there that the King will be turning up to President Sergio Mattarella's 20th wedding anniversary. What a present that would be for the missus. You know what I mean? What do you want for your anniversary, darling? Oh, I've got the King coming to dinner. Absolutely superb. This is an example. Look at the livery on the tail of that jet right behind your head there, Cameron Walker. A magnificent arrival, a superb Airbus, a magnificent Bentley. It really, really looked the business.
Yeah, it really is kind of Britain at its best, isn't it, Martin? And it's representing Britain on the international stage. And the State Bentley, of course, is already here ahead of the King's arrival. And it is that iconic car which we see the British sovereign travel in. He wants to be seen. He's not in a blacked out Range Rover. He's not like the US president who's in that massive beast car, is it, with the blacked out windows. The King wants to be seen. He wants to wave to the Italian public. The British ambassador was telling us earlier on today, the British ambassador to Italy, I should say, that, you know, people have been asking him about the upcoming state visits. There was one newspaper headline in a local newspaper in Ravenna saying, talking about the royal family as well on the front page. So I think they very much have been gearing up to this state visit and are very excited about it. And I suspect there will be large crowds over the next few days in Rome and Ravenna too.
Cameron Walker, I'm absolutely green with envy there. And the beautiful sunshine of Rome, the royal plane behind you, the royal visit now officially underway. Cameron Walker, excellent. Thank you very, very much for joining us live from Rome as the royals touch down for their state visit. Now, I've got some breaking news for you because in these past few minutes, President Donald J. Trump has announced that he will impose additional tariffs on Chinese goods if Beijing does not reverse the retaliatory tariffs it has slapped on American goods by tomorrow. So just when you think things couldn't get more precipitous on the stock market, we heard a short while ago that potentially Donald Trump would think about freezing global tariffs for 90 days. The market rebounded very quickly, and now this. In the last few moments, President Donald Trump has announced that he will impose additional tariffs on Chinese-only goods if Beijing does not reverse those tariffs it imposed on American goods by tomorrow. Wow, more on this next. A lot more still to come between now and 5 o'clock, including claims from a senior Islamic figure that young British Muslims are growing more and more disillusioned and isolated because of the conflict in the Middle East.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Alan Wright. In Cheshire, the M56 westbound is partly blocked after a collision between junction 12 for Runcorn and junction 14 for Helsby and Chester services. In Warwickshire, the M6 southbound, that's partly blocked after a collision. It's between junction 3 for Nuneaton and junction 2 for Coventry in the M69. And in Hertfordshire, the M1 northbound is partly blocked after a collision between junction 9 for Redbourne and junction 10 for Luton Airport and the A1081.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
The great thing is that this is going to be the perfect summer to stay in the UK. A couple of reasons for that. The first one is, well, yeah, you can't do much about the weather, but what you can do is save an absolute fortune. I've been looking at, for instance, all the tourist attractions around Europe. The prices are going through the roof. You want to go and see some beautiful pictures in the Prado in Madrid, that's going to cost you over 30 quid. And yet, here in the UK, all our big cultural attractions are free. And furthermore, you will be doing the country a favour because the best thing you can possibly do is spend money here, create jobs, pay taxes, and make things just a little bit better than they are now.
So, Joe, does that convince you to take a staycation this year?
Well, my staycation will be here in Tenerife, for sure. I want the guaranteed sunshine, and I want the cleaner air. And the cheap places to eat. I mean, Simon was talking about the costs, but in Tenerife, you go into the mountains and the hillside areas, you can still get a 3-course meal for under 20 euros, very good quality. There's arguments, obviously, for both sides, but I think for most people, it's just that guaranteed dose of sunshine that people are looking for.
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to get away from that, Simon, isn't it? That we do want the weather.
Yeah, but we just got to recalibrate, honestly. And tell you what, there's going to be an awful lot of people who are going to be travelling to Tenerife, other places, particularly around the Mediterranean, this coming Easter, because they've literally been scorched over the past couple of years in July and in particular August. Very, very high temperatures. Brits have had enough of too much sunshine.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back, and let's go live now straight to Donald Trump, who's speaking at the White House.
Jay. Thanks, Jay. Nanette Barrigan. Nanette, where's the... Hi, Nanette. Oh, look at that, huh? What nice outfit. One of my favorite people, Gus Bilirakis, Congressman. Hi, Gus. Addison McDowell, new to the Congress, but doing a great job. Thank you, Addison. A real good baseball player and a friend of mine, Roger Williams. Great job. And another new congressman, but he's been there a long time in a mental sense because he has really done a job and he knows Congress very well. He was with me for 7 years. Brian Jack. Brian, congratulations, Brian. And others. We have a couple of senators here. I just don't particularly like them, so I won't introduce. Over the course of this amazing season, the members of this team I didn't think it was that big a deal, actually. Washington. Over the course of this amazing season, the members of this team gave us some of the most incredible performances ever seen in the baseball diamond. In all of baseball history, only 6 players have ever hit 40 home runs and stolen 40 bases in a single season. And an elite group known as the 40-40 Club. It's a 40-40 Club, and very few people make it. But unanimous National League MVP, Shohei Ohtani. Looks like a movie star. He's got a good future, I'm telling you. He shattered all of those records last year. Think of it, all of them. And he did something even more because he became the first ever member of the 50-50 Club. So 40-40 is top. Hitting 54 home runs and 59 steals, and accomplished an accomplishment unparalleled in 149 years of Major League Baseball. Think of that. That's just incredible. Even more incredibly, Shohei clinched that achievement in what some have called the greatest game ever. Was it that good of a game? That was a pretty good game, actually, right there? Is he good?
Only getting better.
And he's getting better.
Getting better.
That's scary for a lot of people, huh? Even more incredibly, Shohei clinched the achievement. I mean, it really was, and at a time that, at an age that nobody ever thought was possible. On September 19th, 2024, he did the unthinkable by going 6 for 6. This is a pretty amazing. I didn't realize it was that good. I saw that game, 6 for 6 against the Marlins with 3 homers, 10 RBIs, and a pair of stolen bases. Other than that, it was not a great game. How many people have gone 6 for 6? Just period, right? Not very much, right?
Maybe a dozen.
Maybe a dozen. Amazing. As you know, the Dodgers were down a lot of talent on the mound last season due to injury. The resilient group used 40 different pitchers, the most ever by an eventual World Series championship team. They had to go and get them. I don't know how they got them and where they got them, but they got them because they won. I know you especially miss the heart and soul of the pitching staff, Clayton Kershaw, who is really fantastic. These are the best-looking people I've ever seen. It's incredible. But Clayton has been unbelievable, and if you look at his records and you look at the stamina, the endurance that he's had, and we're really happy to have him. I'm glad to meet him. I've watched him for a long time. He's a young guy yet, but I've watched. You are a young guy, but I've watched you for a long time. So congratulations, amazing. All year, the Dodgers faced down adversity. You entered the playoffs battered and bruised, but not broken. When you ran out the healthy arms, you ran out of really healthy. They had great arms, but they ran out. It's called sports. It's called baseball in particular, and pitchers, I guess you could say, in really particular. But the starting rotation during the National League Division Series, this scrappy Dodgers bullpen shut out the Padres, saved the season, and forced Game 5. Then key players battled back from midseason injuries to help deliver the National League pennant. including superstars Mookie Betts. Oh, is he good?
Good looking.
Mookie, that guy can play, can't he? I mean, unbelievable. You really, Mookie is, I've been watching it. I don't want to say I watched him when he was on Boston, but I did. I didn't think that was a particularly good trade when they made it, and I happened to be right. And Max Muncy, I want to congratulate Max. Max. Come here, Max. His arms are very strong when I touch them. I'm used to shaking politicians and hitting their armors like Jell-O, and now it's like steel. All these guys, but Max, that's great. And also Yoshi Yamamoto. Yoshi. Wow, what great athletes. And of course, series MVP, Tommy Edman. That was an MVP series. Good feeling, right? With all these guys, you're the guy, right? Yeah, that's pretty good. That's a lot of talent you had to beat out there for the MVP, but they all had an incredible. Tommy was 407 with 11 RBIs in 6 games. That's not bad, right? That's not bad. Great job. When it counted, too. Next came the blockbuster World Series against another iconic team known as the New York Yankees. I love the Yankees. George was a great friend of mine. He had very few friends, but he was. And if you want to sit for 9 innings with a game watching the Yankees play with George, you were exhausted by the end of the game. It was actually hard work, but we love George. And they're doing a good job, and they're doing well this season, and you're already 9-2. And so you're doing a good job. Maybe you see the same thing over again. In Game 1 of the World Series, Freddie Freeman, on a sprained ankle. He's a great player with a broken finger and a broken rib, channeled Kirk Gibson's legendary walk-off home run in Game 1 of the 1988 World Series. That was a game that pretty much on the first pitch Freddie saw in the bottom of the 10th, he hit an unforgettable walk-off grand slam home run, the first in World Series history. It's amazing. The Dodgers rode the momentum to win 2 of their next 3 games, placing them on the verge of baseball immortality in a dramatic Game 5, down 5 runs on the top of the 5th. That was a strange inning, I'll tell you, for those Yankee fans. But I'm not saying I was a Yankee fan, because I love these people behind me. But down 5 runs in the top of the 5th with 2 outs and the bases loaded, the Dodgers gave us one of the grittiest half-inning World Series events, showings that anybody's ever seen. Mookie started the rally by beating out a routine ground ball to first, which he's fast as hell. I don't know how the hell you can. Having that speed isn't that a great thing? I played baseball, but it was sort of slow. I wasn't fast. Driving in the phenomenal Kike Hernandez. Where's Kike? It's a hell of a group. Then Freddie drove in 2 more runs, and Teoscar Hernandez drove in another couple of runs. That's a group. Teoscar, so you're doing well this season, too? A little bit. Yes, that's what I heard. That's what I heard. After a few dominant innings from Blake Trainen. Where's Blake? I heard dominant, right? That's dominant. Great job, Blake. And the team was crowned the World Series champion against a great team. The Yankees are a great team and always a great franchise. And I guess, I don't know, like 28 or something. They've won a lot, probably, maybe more than any team in history overall. And you might be catching them pretty soon if you keep going. You've got little ways to go, I guess. The scouting report at the start of the series said that the Dodgers could win by focusing on the fundamentals, and that's exactly what they did. You showed America that it's not about individual glory. It's about the team digging deep and sprinting right through first base, and you did that all the time. I watch some games. I love baseball. I don't get to watch as much as I'd like, but you always see a spirit on this team. I think a lot of that has to do with the ownership and the management, frankly. But you see a spirit on the Dodgers that you don't see with a lot of teams. A lot of teams I turn on, I say, oh, let's forget it. When I turn on the Dodgers, I like to watch the team. And now that I've gotten to meet these guys personally, I like it even more. I'm going to like it even more, and you're off to a great start. After seeing how successfully you've begun the season, I can tell you that you can plan on being back here. I hope you're going to be back here next year. I don't want to give you too much because we want to have a little suspense for next year, but I will tell you, we're going to go down. We're going to do something we don't do generally. We're going to run them down really fast. I have a game today. Do you have a game today or tonight? We're going to run them down to the Oval Office, and we're going to show them the fabled Oval Office, and there's nothing like it. And this wonderful owner, one of the greatest owners in sports, by the way, from everything I've heard, one of the greatest owners in sports, along with your other compatriots, right, fellas? It's a great team of owners, and that's very important. But he said they'd love it, and I think he'd like to do it himself. So we'll get out of here, and we will run. We'll sprint down, and we'll see the Oval Office, which is really something to see, you know? It's funny, people come from all over, the biggest people, the richest people, the most powerful people, and they come and they go into the Oval Office and they just stare. Oh, wow, that's something. They all have beautiful offices. They have offices that are the best in the world in many cases, but they love the Oval Office. So with all of that, I'd like to now introduce you to the Dodgers chairman, Mark Walter, to say a few words, and then we're going to follow that up with Clayton, who's going to say a couple of things, and that's a great representative of a great team. Thank you very much. Mark, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We're very pleased to participate in the tradition of bringing champions to the White House. Last season was an incredible season. We won the World Series. Second time in 2020, and since 2020, and only 8 times in our seasons.
And that was Donald Trump, the president there. And that was the LA Dodgers. Of course, they're the World Series champions 2024 at the White House, in keeping with a long-standing tradition of the World Series champions to go to the White House. But it wasn't without its controversy. The LA Times said that this goes against everything that the LA Dodgers supposedly stand for. The visit, they were calling it pathetic, spineless, hypocritical, trying to make politics into sport. Donald Trump said that patting them on the arm there, the World Series players, they had arms like steel. More on this next with me, Martin Daubney.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again, here's your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. More sunshine to come as we go through the next few days. Worth bearing in mind though, our nights will be a little bit chilly, and with that we could see a few pockets of mist and fog. But the reason why it's mostly fine at the moment, well, high pressure. It's not going anywhere for the time being, so it's going to continue to dominate our weather, bringing the settled conditions and the largely sunny skies. The sunny skies then leads to a clear At times, but nonetheless plenty of blue skies on offer, and with that it is going to feel pretty warm indeed. Temperatures similar, maybe even a touch higher than today, so highs around 18 or 19 Celsius, pretty warm indeed. Staying fine as we go through the end of tomorrow as well. More fine weather through the evening and overnight. Again, a few pockets of mist and fog perhaps as we go overnight into Wednesday. But high pressure is going to stick around for a little while yet, so it is staying generally dry and often sunny as we go through the rest of the week. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Alan Wright. In Warwickshire, the M6 southbound is partly blocked after a collision. It's between junction 3 for Nuneaton and junction 2 for Coventry in the M69. In Gloucestershire, the M5 southbound is partly blocked by a broken down lorry just before junction 10 for Cheltenham. And in East Sussex near Brighton, the A27 is blocked eastbound. That's after a 3-vehicle collision. It's happened just by the West Hove turn-off for the A293.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For a chance to win a motorhome and cash, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 5 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, as Trump's tariffs continue to bite. Today, Sir Keir Starmer watered down Britain's net zero targets. Van drivers, some good news, mercifully, won't have to now go fully electric until 2035, but is it time to go the full Monty? Should we ditch net zero and, while we're at it, slash taxes and regulation to get Britain booming again? And the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has announced that the first phase of the Southport inquiry is starting today. What answers can we expect? We'll have all of the latest with our Home and Security Editor. And a damning new study has shown that only 10% of young British Muslims think Britain is a tolerant country, and that 50% are growing more alienated from Britain as a result. Can anything be done to boost integration, or does this study show that this is a laudable goal but is a pipe dream? And a Kent pub landlord has sparked up a huge debate after his boozer became the first in Britain to ban smoking everywhere, even in the pub garden. Now, with some locals threatening to bar this boozer, I'll be joined by the Hope Inn's landlord, who says if smokers don't like it, well, they can go elsewhere. That's all coming up in your next hour. Well, to show it's a pleasure to have your company. Also in this hour, a cellmate of Shamima Begum, the jihadi bride, is in a jail in Syria. Along with Shamima Begum, she has a child who was born in Syria and a head injury, which apparently now needs NHS treatment. There's a quango pushing for her return to Britain. I'll be joined in the studio shortly by Rob Bates from the Centre for Migration Control, who says this is an insult to every British taxpayer. Plus, a new study today shows that 20% of all small boat arrivals, dinghy arrivals, are now from Eritrea. And that's some astonishing statistics into their propensity to commit sex crimes, violent crimes, and claim benefits. A huge conversation should be controlling not only the types of people coming into our country, but where they come from in the first place. Get in touch with me. GBNews.com/your way is the way to do it. But now here's your headlines, and here's Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you, and good evening to you. It's just coming up to 3 minutes past 5. The top story, Sir Keir Starmer is calling for cool heads as global markets plunge in response to Donald Trump's sweeping global tariffs. Speaking earlier this afternoon at a Jaguar Land Rover plant hit by those 25% tariffs from the United States, the Prime Minister said Britain must rise together in a new era of global instability. He also called it a moment of urgency and vowed to fight for a US deal and ramp up talks with the trade institutions. Well, meanwhile, global markets have plunged as investors reel from those new import tariffs and fears of a growing global trade war. The S&P 500 is swinging wildly today, falling 4%, then rising 2% before sliding back into the red. Meanwhile, the FTSE 100 in London mirrored that chaos, down by 6% at one point. And Asian markets, well, they were hit even harder. Japan's Nikkei dropped nearly 8%, while Hong Kong suffered its worst day since 1997. And staying with news on the markets, just a breaking line to bring you. Donald Trump has, in the last half hour or so, threatened to impose an additional 50% tariff on China from the 9th of April. That is just 2 days' time, following China and Beijing saying that they are going to impose 34% on US exports. So Donald Trump, US president, saying that he will impose an additional 50% unless Beijing backs down on its 34% tariff. In other news here at home, Axel Ruda-Cabana has been jailed for at least 52 years for killing 3 young girls, and a public inquiry is now underway into those murders that, of course, shocked the nation last summer. 3 young girls were killed and 10 others were caught up in that incident at a dance class. The probe will ask how he slipped through the cracks, despite referrals to prevent and 6 separate police call-outs. It's being led by top judge Sir Adrian Fulford and will hear evidence from 15 major bodies. The Home Secretary says families deserve answers and that urgent lessons must now be learned. Firefighters in Northern Ireland are bracing for more wildfires after battling nearly 150 blazes in just 3 days. A major inferno near the Mourne Mountains was declared a critical incident, forcing evacuations as crews fought through the night in high winds and searing heat. Most of the fires are believed to have been started deliberately, with 1 man arrested and later released on bail. An amber wildfire warning remains in place as temperatures rise and fears grow of more outbreaks. Northern Ireland's Environment Minister warns lives could be lost if arsonists, he says, don't wise up. The Kremlin says President Putin supports a ceasefire in Ukraine, but insists key questions must be answered first. Officials claim no one has provided Russia with clarity on a potential deal. Meanwhile, on the economy, Moscow warns the outlook is very tense, with Russian authorities saying they're also watching oil prices very closely as market fears grow. Two Labour MPs denied entry to Israel are now heading home after being accused of planning to spread anti-Israel hatred. They were deported, sparking political fallout back in Westminster. Kemi Badenoch says Israel is an ally, though, and democracy, and is not surprised by the move. But Foreign Secretary David Lammy called her comments disgraceful. Meanwhile, Richard Holden from the Conservatives hit back, accusing Labour of double standards.
Israel has a right to choose who goes into its country and not. It's the only open democracy in the Middle East. There is real criticism, believe me, within Israel both ways, and there's a proper democratic debate ongoing in there. I find it particularly bizarre when Labour MPs are calling for the Prime Minister of Israel to be arrested, that if he ever came to the UK, that at the same time they're saying that we can't even, and these aren't people being arrested, these people have been denied entry to Israel. It smacks of double standards from this Labour government to me.
And the King and Queen have arrived in Italy today for a state visit there, beginning a 4-day tour of Rome and Ravenna. A planned meeting with Pope Francis, though, had to be postponed due to his ill health. But His Majesty will meet Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni and address a joint session of Parliament. Their Majesties will also mark their 20th wedding anniversary during the trip. Here's our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker, who's in Rome for us.
This is a chance for the UK government to use the King's soft power to strengthen relations between Britain and Italy. This is in the context, of course, of tariffs being imposed on both the EU and the UK by President Trump, the UK and Italy working together to combat illegal migration, and, of course, two NATO allies showing military strength in the face of Russian aggression in Eastern Europe. The King and Queen arriving later on today.
That's the news on GB News. I'll be back with you in half an hour, and Martin straight back after we take a quick look at those all-important markets.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to news alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
So just after 5 o'clock, the pound at this stage will buy you $1.2818 and €1.1688 euros. The price of gold, £2,363 and 11 pence, that is per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is currently standing at 7,693 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Thank you, Sam. Now, Donald Trump has declared the world must take his medicine as world markets continue to plummet following the US president's imposition of tariffs last week. And he's threatened to go further in this past hour, declaring he will impose additional tariffs on Chinese goods if Beijing doesn't reverse its retaliatory tariffs on America by tomorrow. And meanwhile, Britain became the latest nation to feel the pinch of Mr. Trump's import taxes as the FTSE 100 slumped to its lowest level in a year. And global oil prices have also fallen to their lowest levels since 2021. Now, earlier on today, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, was at the Jaguar Land Rover plant in Solihull. And our political editor, Chris Hope, asked him, well, what are we going to do about these tariffs? How are we going to pay for a new £22 billion? We've got another one now. We've got two £22 billion black holes, because that's the value knocked off the economy since those tariffs came in. And news in this morning, that's the Labour Party's budget is costing one job every 9 minutes. New figures show. So Chris Hope, our political editor, wanted to know from the Prime Minister, will that mean taxes will increase? And here's what the Prime Minister had to say.
Chris, we made that commitment in the manifesto and we were absolutely clear about going into the budget and the spring statement, and that is a commitment we've made and a commitment that we will keep, because the first lever can't be more taxes. My strong belief is that we have to grow our economy, create the conditions for investment, which we have done. There's been record investment coming into our economy. Now in the light of these challenges, we have to go further and faster in the changes we're making, whether that's to do with regulation, whether it's to do with the EV mandate, to make it more flexible so that businesses like this can thrive and meet the challenges. We have to push on into that space. So I'm still strongly of the view that the challenge we face is how to grow our economy, not just the sort of familiar tax and spend levers.
So there we have it. We now have on record no tax rises, no income tax, no VAT, probably no money back, no guarantee. Only fools and horses are going to believe this. Where's the money going to come from? Every serious economics expert who you ask say that we have to have fiscal stimulus, cutting taxes to get things going. Is that a good idea? Well, let's ask an expert. I'm joined now by the policy chair, the Federation of Small Businesses, Tina McKenzie. Tina, welcome to the show. So Keir Starmer seems to be channeling his inner Brexiteer earlier on. He said we need to rewire our economy, rip up regulation, watering down net zero. Perhaps that would be a good idea, to water it down to the point where it doesn't exist, Tina McKenzie. It seems that with tariffs, with the black hole doubling in size, small businesses need some proper stimulus. Are you confident that the Prime Minister can deliver?
Well, sometimes it takes a shock for people to actually realise that we need to do things differently. As he said, we can't just tax and spend into the public sector and expect investment from business. I think that the business community are feeling, especially this week of all weeks, never mind the tariffs, they're feeling severely under pressure with the drop in the support for business rates. Also, we've got the hike in national insurance, the hike in the minimum wage, and we've got this looming employment bill coming over the hill that, you know, when the government talk about, you know, relaxing regulation, making it easier to do business, they've talked a lot about it. We've now got to get on and do it. So it's good to hear the Prime Minister say that that's something he's looking at. Also, you know, looking at the industrial strategy. What things are we doing in this country today to help encourage businesses to start, but also to grow, to scale, and indeed, even in this environment, to export? And they're the things we're looking at. What else can they do to encourage businesses to invest? We invest, the money sits with businesses. If businesses invest, we create jobs, we create wealth, and we create the money that they need and want to spend on public services.
Now, Tina McKenzie, we know that politicians watch this programme, so why don't we give them a few ideas? I'll go first. If you want to make Britain the kind of destination where people, I don't know, want to come and start a company or invest a huge amount of money in our country, we could do something like follow Northern Ireland and, follow Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, and slash our corporation tax to a low amount. We were promised we could do that during Brexit. How about right now, if Keir Starmer channels his inner Brexiteer and goes, I'll tell you what, we're going to have the lowest corporation tax in all of mainland Europe, so people come to Britain, they build in Britain, and jobs and prosperity flow to our shores. What about that?
Well, it's interesting because the Republic of Ireland has a huge, hundreds of billions of a surplus. What the UK would do just to get their hands on that, never mind the fact that the Republic of Ireland is, you know, 10 times smaller than the whole of the UK. So, you know, I think we've kind of missed a trick there. That is something we should have done maybe the last 5 to 10 years. That's why the Republic of Ireland got all of that investment in. But it wasn't just about the corporation tax, because company law is more flexible in the Republic of Ireland than the UK. So a lot of those big tech companies, a lot of that American investment is not just because of tax, it's also because the company law is more flexible where they can move their funds around too. So, but I think that reducing corporation tax is a good thing, especially in Northern Ireland, because it's got a land border with the Republic, which always meant it was at a disadvantage. And we've been saying for years to the chancellors that would listen, that would be great to create a little hothouse in Northern Ireland, an economic zone, a free port. Let's get the economy moving with some proactive steps. Let's not wait until a crisis happens before we step in. But there's a host of things they could do. They could ring fence the smallest businesses and say, on a ton of regulation, that you set outside this regulation, because a lot of heavy regulation doesn't even really apply to the smallest businesses. And our economy, 65% of all jobs are actually from small and medium businesses. And yet all we do, well, a lot of what we do is focus on what's good for big businesses. If we look domestically, there are so many things we could do to help smaller businesses grow and scale that actually don't cost a lot of money. What about HMRC? What about saying to HMRC to be more flexible, to make things easier? You know, small businesses lose on average 5 days a year trying to deal with HMRC because it's so complex for them. We have a whole list of stuff. We talk to the government regularly to make life easy. It doesn't cost them a penny to really help businesses in this country grow and scale and start as well.
Tina McKenzie, one can only hope and pray that they're listening in to you, and some of this will rub off, because by Jove, don't we need some fiscal stimulus? Tina McKenzie, Policy Chair, Federation of Small Businesses, EPIC. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today. Let's move on now, because a pro-immigration quango is demanding a jihadi bride, currently in a Syrian prison with Shamima Begum, is allowed the right to return to Britain because she needs NHS healthcare. Now, should Islamists who once vowed to eviscerate Britain ever be allowed back into our country? Well, I'm joined in the studio in Westminster by the Research Director from the Centre for Migration Control, Rob Bates. Rob, it's like Groundhog Day. Here we are again. It's not Shamima Begum this time, but it appears it's a cellmate of hers, or at least somebody who left Britain around about the same time, a British woman who became a jihadi, you know, ISIS. They wanted to wipe Britain off the face of the earth and replace it with a caliphate. Now, apparently, is being pressurised. The Special Immigration Appeals Commission wants her to come back to Britain because she's got a son and she has a head injury. Should she be allowed back?
Absolutely not. This woman is not British. She has had her British citizenship revoked. She's one of the very few people that have actually had their citizenship revoked in recent years. She is not our problem. She was an individual that went to a foreign land, engaged with terrorist activities, or at least affiliated with those that were in that kind of world. She is an individual who is clearly very anathema to everything that we'd expect individuals from this country to represent and to stand for. A decision has been made by the Home Secretary. The decision has been made by the government, by elected politicians, that she is not conducive to the public good, that she should not be in the country. Yet we have obscure left-wing judges again overruling the decision. It's an incredibly depressing state of affairs, and this quango that we're talking about here today is another manifestation of the perils that ensue from our membership of the ECHR. It's something that was created in the late 1990s, along with a lot of the other constitutional vandalism that took place in our judicial system. It was created in 1990s to make sure that individuals that were facing deportation or facing the revocation of their citizenship had their Article 5, their right to kind of, you know, unfair treatment and all that kind of stuff not being jeopardised. So this is a kind of a consequence of where we've allowed ourselves to get as a result of allowing the ECHR to take such a pervasive role in our everyday governance.
And Rob, I had an extraordinary conversation early on with a human rights lawyer who said another reason this individual should be allowed back in is because she had a son in Syria, but he insisted that child is British, because the child was born, OK, on Syrian soil, but to a British mother. QED, the child is British. On what planet can that be allowed to happen?
It makes no sense. It's a weird quirk of the system. Unfortunately, British citizenship is something that's handed out far too easily and far too readily at the moment. We don't have proper kind of boundaries as to what constitutes British citizenship. And as a result, we end up in these kind of peculiar situations where someone is able to, through their child, make claim that they should be able to receive NHS treatment. This child, as far as I can decipher, has never set foot in the UK, is only British by some legal quirk, as I say, through their mother, who has subsequently had her own British citizenship revoked. So, you know, this just shows, and the individual that you're referring to and the comments they made earlier, it just shows how left-wing lawyers, left-wing judges will twist every single dot and comma and cross T of human rights law, of human rights legislation, to try and suit their own political agenda. And unfortunately, it's working at the moment. We see case after case after case of the human rights of individuals that have committed serious crimes in this country that we can't remove because of these human rights laws. And we need someone, a government, that is able to come in with a scythe and completely sweep the lot away.
OK, Rob Bates, thanks for your company as ever and your expertise. Pleasure to have you in the studio. Let's move on now. For the last 3 days, Northern Irish firefighters have been battling nearly 150 wildfires near the Mourne Mountains in County Down. And the Northern Ireland Fire and Rescue Service says the significant majority of the fires were started deliberately. Well, joining us now is our Northern Eye reporter, Doogie Beattie. Doogie, astonishing, the wildfires seem to be having their roots in arson attacks.
Well, it is that way. It appears to be that way, Martin. But right across the UK, as the gorse and the heather dries out on these mountainsides and many of the fields up and around Yorkshire, etc., what happens is people have been out and they've been having picnics or whatever, and they threw their glass bottles down. The sun has came and hit that, caused it as a magnifying effect, and set the gorse on fire. I'm outside Newcastle in a place called Bloody Bridge, and behind me you can see the mountains of Mourne, and believe it or not, that's not mist there. That is smoke belching off those mountains, and there's little pockets of these fires the whole way inside the mountain range, so it makes it extremely hard for firefighters to get there. I joined a few of them earlier on as they were leaving from Hilltown, and they're having to operate with shovels and beating equipment to beat the fires out, and some of them are even marching with packs on their back with pumps in them to put them in the near streams and basically mechanically put this water out across these fires. And I spoke to John Gamble, one of the fire commanders, and he told me just what exactly was going on.
The fires have been going on for the last number of days, and it's really due to the prolonged dry spell, and it's putting a lot of pressure on the fire service and also a huge amount of environmental damage.
And I mean, what is the main cause of it? Is there one cause, or is it carelessness?
There's a number of causes for these fires. Some of them are accidental, some of them are deliberate, and they can be caused by littering the likes of glass with the strong sunlight causing fires, or they can be deliberate.
Well, Martin, they are taking the, resources from right across Northern Ireland to try and fight these fires. It is nearly a yearly occurrence, but I can tell you, if you're standing in Newcastle, which is just downwind of me now, you can't even see Slieve Donard Mountain because of the amount of smoke that's coming over the top of the mountain and down into the town. And hopefully these firefighters can stop these pockets of fires reaching one another and actually extinguish what is there.
Well, let's hope so, Doogie. It looks absolutely beautiful there in County Down. Let's hope those boys and girls can help put those fires out. Thank you for joining us, Doogie. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you. Now, coming up, I'll be joined by the founder of a homeless veterans charity who is fighting to keep it open. Just 11 days of money left, but you, the GB News viewer, can step in and save the day. That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new Royal Newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time is 5:26 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the Bloc Armed Forces Foundation is a charity based on Merseyside that provides vital support, including emergency accommodation and housing support to ex-forces men and women, including those who are struggling with the transition after a life in the military. However, they are facing closure over funding cuts and have launched an appeal so they continue to perform their vital and life-saving work. And I'm delighted to say I can now speak with the founder of the Bloc Armed Forces Foundation, Colin Easterway. Colin, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. First of all, I always start, you're a former paratrooper, right? Thank you for your service. Tell us about your foundation, your charity, the work it does, and how people can come in and help you.
Thank you, Martin. Hello, good evening, everyone. So we started in 2020 during the COVID pandemic when mental health was at the forefront of everybody's mind, and a lot of veterans in our area were finding themselves homeless. So we quickly adapted and we made a crisis prevention centre and started addressing homelessness along with veterans' mental health, giving them a place where they can reach out and get the vital support that they need. Since then, we've registered as a charity. We thought by now we would have been funded and maybe supported by our local authority, but that hasn't happened 5 years in. The new national pathway for Op4 to choose of veterans' mental health, wrong veterans' housing, along with Op Courage for veterans' mental health. They also refer into us homeless veterans on a regular basis, but we haven't received any operational funding from them either. Also, with the level of referrals increasing every week, national charities, the big charities, the Armed Forces charities, Royal British Legion, Help for Heroes, constantly sending us homeless veterans to us, has put the level of output so high that we've run out of funding. Those major charities and those other organisations don't send any funding. They continue to send homeless veterans to us, which we have to crisis manage and try and find solutions. We have an ethos where no veteran leaves our office without a safe place to sleep that night. And we stand by that ethos. The larger charities have got onto that and start firing them into us. So we're really struggling financially. So that's where we are at the moment. We've housed over 150 veterans since we started directly into accommodation and then provided wraparound support. Our drop-in office, which we've had to close this week due to lack of funding, has helped just over 1,400 people in the last 2 years. That's veterans, families, homeless veterans who need basic support with the transition. So here we are now. At the moment, the drop-in sector is closed.
Colin, it's heartbreaking to hear that clearly a vital and amazing service like yours at a time, without getting political, where we can donate £8 million a day to house asylum seekers, illegal immigrants who come to our country in hotels. I digress. You've got a shortfall of funding. I understand you've got about 11 days of money left. How can the generosity and the good hearts of GB News viewers help? Is there any way, for example, that the public can donate to you?
There is. We do have a crowdfunder page out at the moment, and that's on our social medias. It's on Facebook, it's on X, and it's on the Instagram page. It's up in the bio. That's been agreed by crowdfunder. They will double any donations up to £250 at the moment. Those are actually the funds that we are running off right now, because we do have veterans who are in emergency accommodation which need additional specialist support for their mental health, addiction, and continued homelessness. There's a lot of veterans in our area that rely on our drop-in service, and we're so good at doing what we do. It's unfortunately we ran out of funds, and we need those funds to be able to keep going.
And if you want to get stuck in, then it's Aviva there. There's a community fund page, so they will match any fee up to 250 quid that people donate. The Block Armed Forces Foundation, Housing Heroes with Financial Resilience, just a way to get involved. Colin, I think you're doing God's work. I really do think you're doing God's work. I wish you the very, very best of British. Thanks for all the service you've done, all the lives you've helped save, all the lives you've helped to improve. And I really, really hope and pray you can keep going. I hope we can do something to help with that. Colin Eastaway, the founder of the Block Armed Forces Foundation. You mind how you're going. Thanks for joining us today here on GB News. Thank you very, very much indeed. What kind of country is it, man, where things like that aren't getting the money that they need? Well, I mean, seriously, 8 million quid a day going to house asylum seekers and illegal immigrants, and we can't afford to keep the block open to take care of our veterans, I ask you. I'll play more to come throughout the rest of the show, but if you're travelling home from work or from school this afternoon, then here is your traffic and your travel updates. And don't forget to stick with us on digital and on radio.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
The latest GB News Travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Nick Arkell. The M6 southbound is stopped by a collision involving a van and a car near Spighetti Junction. It's already queuing back to 7. Also on the southbound M6, junction 3 through to 2 not far away near Coventry. There's another collision closing a lane causing a queue. Near Chester, the M56 westbound's busy, junction 12 to 14, heavy where there was a collision. The M11 northbound through Essex, that's backing up a lot with 2 lanes closed by an incident. Junction 5 through to junction 6, heading up to join the M25. And the M1 northbound still slow where there was a broken down vehicle, junction 9 through to junction 10 near Luton Airport.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Safe travels home. But first, now here's time for your latest news headlines, and here's Sam Francis.
Very good evening to you. 5:33. The top story: Sir Keir Starmer has called for cool heads as global markets have plunged in response to Donald Trump's sweeping global tariffs. Speaking today at a Jaguar Land Rover plant hit by those 25% US tariffs, the Prime Minister said Britain must rise together in a new era of global instability. He also called it a moment for urgency and vowed to fight for a US deal and ramp up trade talks. Meanwhile, global markets have plunged as investors reel from those new import tariffs and fears of a global trade war. The S&P 500 has been swinging wildly today, falling 4%, then rising 2%, before now sliding back into the red. London's FTSE 100, meanwhile, mirrored the chaos, down by 6% at one point today. Asian markets, though, were hit even harder. Japan's Nikkei dropped nearly 8%, while Hong Kong suffered its worst day since 1997. A public inquiry is now underway into the Southport murders that shocked the nation last summer. Axel Rudakabana was jailed for at least 52 years for killing 3 young girls and trying to murder 10 others at a dance class. The probe will ask how he slipped through the cracks despite referrals to Prevent and 6 separate police call-outs. It's led by a top judge, Sir Adrian Fulford, and will hear evidence from 15 major bodies. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper says families deserve answers and that urgent lessons must be learned. Firefighters in Northern Ireland are bracing for more wildfires after battling nearly 150 blazes in just 3 days. A major inferno near the Mourne Mountains was declared a critical incident, forcing evacuations as crews there fought through the night in high winds and searing heat. Most of the fires are believed to have been started deliberately, with so far one man arrested and later released on bail. An amber wildfire warning remains in place as temperatures rise and fears grow of more outbreaks. Northern Ireland's Environment Minister warns that lives could be lost if arsonists, he says, don't wise up. And the King and Queen have arrived in Italy for a state visit, beginning a 4-day tour of Rome and Ravenna. A planned meeting with the Pope, though, Pope Francis, has been postponed due to his ill health. But King Charles will meet Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni and address a joint session of Parliament. And their Majesties will also mark their 20th wedding anniversary during the trip. Here's our royal correspondent Cameron Walker, who's in Rome for us.
This is a chance for the UK government to use the King's soft power to strengthen relations between Britain and Italy. This is in the context, of course, of tariffs being imposed on both the EU and the UK by President Trump, the UK and Italy working together to combat illegal migration, and, of course, 2 NATO allies showing military strength in the face of Russian aggression in Eastern Europe. The King and Queen arriving later on today.
Cameron Walker there for us in Rome. Well, those are the latest headlines. A full roundup with the news at 6. Next, though, let's take one last look at the markets.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Well, let's take a look at those all-important markets. Here's how they stand just after 5:30. The pound will buy you $1.2818 and €1.1688. The price of gold, £2,363 and 11 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 7,693 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
The Daily Mail. White glamour model Martina Big, 36, who, quote, identifies as black, quote, after having tanning... I can't do it. Who identifies as black, quote, after having tanning injections, and this is the bit, this is the kicker at the end of it, announces plan to move to Africa. Yeah. There's so much to unpack here. This is a woman called Martina Big, who is well-named.
That's her birth name.
That is her birth name, but also the description of her chest. She's spent quite a lot of money getting the largest breasts in Europe. She now, however, has been injecting herself with some kind of pigment or colouring system to turn her from white to black.
Let's have a look. So this is before.
This is before, and then it's quite a shocking shift here. She's been to Kenya to go and meet the Masai Mara. They've christened her. They've given her a baptism, and so she's now believing that she is Kenyan, and she's going over to Kenya. So what is weird about this is it's like, obviously the...
Tell us what's weird about it.
Well, what is weird about it? There's obviously the initial thought of like, that's really inappropriate. This is black-facing, but not even in a temporary way. Yeah. But then hang on, she wants to be living her true life. So maybe she should be. This is where it's all got tied up in itself. Steve used to be a black woman before to the business. Steve McGee, our correspondent.
What's the difference in blackface here and what gender-critical women would call women face, which they would say that's how they address men, biological men, now saying that they're women. They would say it's the same, like Dylan Mulvaney, who is, as far as I know, still an intact male, but sort of prancing around and sort of being this kind of...
like a girl.
Yeah, like oh, I'm a girl and that's very offensive to women.
In fact, this woman actually has a greater claim because evolutionarily
Yes.
She will have black ancestors.
Of course, we all do.
Yeah, so...
And, according to her, she will, and I'm not a doctor, but
This is so good.
she will have black children.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
because
the failure is
you're
the failure
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel. Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it? Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 5:41 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, residents of the Scottish town of Cumnock say they are now under siege from wind farm developers. Well, GB News' Scotland reporter Tony Maguire has been investigating how communities surrounded by wind power can be left feeling so utterly powerless.
Scottish wind power turns 30 this year. From the first modest array of 14 turbines here at Hagshaw Hill to some 4,300 in Scotland today, producing a record 30 terawatt hours of electricity last year. But residents of New Cumnock in East Ayrshire say they're now under siege from wind farm developers. Maps shared by the New Cumnock Wind Farm Community Action Group show the combination of operational, approved and planned sites totalling 500 turbines within 8 miles of a town of just 2,500. Retired plumber Hugh Liggett says the community has lost its voice and the town has become a dumping ground for developers.
They don't take us seriously and they're quite happy just to basically saturate us in turbines. Where my cottage is beautiful, but the way it's going with all the planning, there's going to be a complete ring of steel round about us. It's basically like Highland clearances all over again, but not for sheep this time, it's for turbines.
Now UK Labour wants to give the Scottish Government powers to speed up the approval process. A move John Houston finds increasingly disheartening when faced with a growing number of turbines outside his front door.
As communities, we the windmill were powerless. The council, they're changing the rules so the council can't stand up to them, so if they can't stand up to them, we have no chance.
In some cases, the best these unhappy locals can hope for is generous community funding from developers. Here is the job of the 9cc and Stephen McCarran to get residents the best deal.
We can negotiate these payments for improvements quicker and higher in value than what was previously consented. It should be noted that there's no obligation on developers to pay them.
Faster development is a red flag for other East Ayrshire residents like Elliot Davies. The former music manager lives in the shadow of Whiteley, once Europe's largest onshore wind farm, where the eager construction of 215 turbines left him drinking contaminated water for up to 6 years.
So the water stopped in 2007. It came back on a couple of months later. From that moment on until we first realised that we were drinking contaminated water, it was 2013. Everyone was remiss in making sure that our private water supply were properly protected.
If communities are being ignored, then it's another layer of dissatisfaction and the growing resentment around Scottish Government's net zero strategy. £380 million was paid to wind farms to keep their turbines switched off in 2024, because wind farms are being built faster than battery storage facilities can catch up. We've scrapped annual emissions targets and we're on track to miss 2045's net zero goal by 20 million tonnes of CO2 equivalent. And for our troubles, Scotland and the UK has some of the highest energy prices in Western Europe. So is it really so surprising that communities are left asking, what is the point in any of this? Tony Maguire, GB News.
Do you remember that headline, will the last person to leave Britain please turn off the lights? 380 million quid to not turn those power turbines on? What planet are we on? Anyway, let's move on. Have a bit of fun now. It's time for the Great British Giveaway, and it's the biggest prize we've ever given away. It's your chance to drive away a brand new motorhome. Oh, God, I want one of those, worth over £67,000. And here's all the details you need to enter.
We're making the Great British Giveaway a getaway with a chance to win our biggest prize to date. You could be the proud owner of this Alneg Baron 560 motorhome, worth over £67,000. Supplied brand new from Marquis Leisure, you could be exploring Great Britain and beyond this summer and making memories to last a lifetime. This motorhome comfortably sleeps 4, has its own kitchen and bathroom spaces, and comes complete with all of the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle of this calibre. And that's not all, as we'll also give you £5,000 in tax-free cash so you can get started on your next adventure as soon as possible. For a chance to win a motorhome and cash, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, if you've got some holiday sun to go with that motorhome, then here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello. Well, if you are off on your Easter break, it is colder in the southeast Mediterranean at the moment. Having a look at the detail, we've got some colder air coming down from the Arctic, so actually much below average for the time of year. Across parts of Italy, there is some sunshine, especially then more so across France, parts of Spain and Portugal. But towards the far west, we will see outbreaks of rain and some showers. And then as we go through the week, many places will see some sunshine before it turns a little bit downhill later.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello again, here's your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. More sunshine to come as we go through the next few days. Worth bearing in mind though, our nights will be a little bit chilly, and with that we could see a few pockets of mist and fog. But the reason why it's mostly fine at the moment, well, high pressure. It's not going anywhere for the time being, so it's going to continue to dominate our weather, bringing the settled conditions and the largely sunny skies. The sunny skies then leads to a clear night for most of us, but a cloud around Orkney and Shetland, and worth bearing in mind there'll be some low clouds, some mist, some fog developing around the Humber as well, and a few pockets of mist and fog could develop elsewhere, but most of us having a dry, clear night. With that then, temperatures taking a bit of a dip, so a chilly start to tomorrow morning. There could be a touch of frost in some prone spots. As we go through the day though, most of any mist and fog patches will gradually clear away as we go through the morning. There may be a zone of something a little bit cloudier around the London area for a time, but otherwise lots of sunshine on offer. Some eastern parts of Scotland, maybe into northeast England and around the Humber. Here, any mist and fog could take a little while to clear as we go through the day, but otherwise it is going to be a fine picture and plenty of sunshine. Yet again, away from perhaps the far north of Scotland, still a bit of nagging cloud around, similar to today really. Otherwise, as we go through the day, yes, lots of sunshine on offer, a bit more high-level cloud than we'll have seen through today, and so the sunshine may be a bit hazy at times, but nonetheless plenty of blue skies on offer, and with that it is going to feel pretty warm indeed. Temperatures similar, maybe even a touch higher than today, so highs around 18 or 19 Celsius, pretty warm indeed. Staying fine as we go through the end of tomorrow as well. More fine weather through the evening and overnight. Again, a few pockets of mist and fog perhaps as we go overnight into Wednesday. But high pressure is going to stick around for a little while yet, so it is staying generally dry and often sunny as we go through the rest of the week. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back now. A pub landlord has sparked up a huge debate by becoming the UK's first governor to ban smoking in his pub's garden. John Garrett, the landlord of the Hope Inn, based in Hythe in Kent, has barred punters from sparking up anywhere on the premises, saying that second-hand smoke puts his customers off. Right, let's get straight into the man himself. We're joined now by the landlord of the pub, John Garrett. John, welcome to the show. You've certainly kicked off a huge debate. What's the reasoning behind banning fags in your garden?
Well, it just suits our venue better. The majority of people do not smoke anymore, and the majority of our customers will be eating food during the course of their visit. One or two people that want to smoke would be blowing their smoke over those customers who are eating in the garden. Most of our customers being families, etc., and it makes their visit slightly less pleasant. So we're just moving on to the future, where it's not so acceptable to have smoking in our pub garden, and I think a lot of other pubs will do the same.
John, what we say to people who say, well, it's one of a free Englishman's God-given rights to enjoy a ciggy with his pint and with his meal, particularly outdoors. I mean, doesn't Mother Nature do the rest and blow the smoke away?
Actually, what nature does is blow it onto other people. There are plenty of other venues that people can go to where they can drink, smoke, eat in the garden, and that's absolutely fine. It just doesn't really suit our venue.
So what would happen, John, if somebody came into your garden and sparked up? Would you kick them out?
I'm not going to kick anybody out, but I would ask them to refrain from smoking. If they refuse to refrain from smoking, unfortunately, they wouldn't be able to buy any more drinks or food from us.
And has there been a backlash? There have been some punts online saying they're going to bar your pub. Does that bother you, or you think people will replace them because you're uniquely a smoke-free venue?
I think there's more people to replace them if they don't want to come here anymore, yes.
OK, so that's it. Superb. You made your mind up. Thank you very, very much for joining us. That's the landlord of the pub, Hope Hill, John Garrett. What do you make of that? It is, of course, his choice. It is perfectly legal for any landlord to ban smoking on their premises. They can take it as a private residence, not a public space. So John Garrett has taken the first step, the first landlord in all of Britain to ban smoking at his boozer, the Hope Inn. What do you make of that? Well, let's see where these things go. Coming up next, talking of smoking, it's Jubes & Co. up next with Michelle Dewberry.
Well, thank you very much, Martin. Daubney, you know what? It's his garden. What can you say? If you can't have your own rules in your own pub garden, where can you? I'll tell you, coming up on my programme tonight, I've got the Reform MP, Richard Tice, the Labour MP, Barry Gardner. We've got a lot to discuss. All the ramifications of Trump tariffs, but of course, Ursula von der Leyen saying 0 on 0. Also, the latest group now to be accused of being perhaps prejudiced of parliamentary security guards. So we, the taxpayer, will now be funding almost like mystery shoppers now to go in and actually have a look to see whether that's the case or not. We've got all of that and a lot more, so grab yourself a cup of tea, get yourself nice and comfortable, but don't go anywhere because we are up next.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again, here's your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. More sunshine to come as we go through the next few days. Worth bearing in mind though, our nights will be a little bit chilly, and with that we could see a few pockets of mist and fog. But the reason why it's mostly fine at the moment, well, high pressure. It's not going anywhere for the time being, so it's going to continue to dominate our weather, bringing the settled conditions and the largely sunny skies. The sunny skies then leads to a clear night for most of us, but a cloud around Orkney and Shetland, and worth bearing in mind there'll be some low clouds, some mist, some fog developing around the Humber as well, and a few pockets of mist and fog could develop elsewhere, but most of us having a dry, clear night. With that then temperatures taking a bit of a dip, so a chilly start to tomorrow morning. There could be a touch of frost in some prone spots. As we go through the day though, most of any mist and fog patches will gradually clear away as we go through the morning. There may be a zone of something a little bit cloudier around the London area for a time, but otherwise lots of sunshine on offer. Some eastern parts of Scotland, maybe into northeast England and around the Humber here, any mist and fog could take a little while to clear as we go through the day, but otherwise it is going to be a fine picture and plenty of sunshine. Yet again, away from perhaps the far north of Scotland, still a bit of nagging